Good morning. I now call the November 5th, 2020 Administrative Briefing and Work Session of the Marion County School Board to order at 9 a.m. Please silence your electronic devices, remove hats to avoid disturbing. I'll now ask the School Board's Attorney to explain the rules for this work session.
This work session is a public meeting as defined in Florida's Sunshine Law. The board is dedicated to full transparency in its meetings and its work. In compliance with the Sunshine Law, the board has adopted uniform meeting procedures, including the right for citizens to participate. The board will allow public comment regarding any work session item listed on today's agenda at the appropriate time. Speakers must fill out a request form and hand it to the school board secretary. After the board and superintendent have completed their discussion on a particular agenda item, the secretary will call speakers' names in the order received. At the podium, speakers are asked to state their full name and address and to spell their last names. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. As required by the Sunshine Law, the board must maintain orderly conduct and proper decorum throughout this meeting. Speakers may criticize subject matter and decisions in a respectful manner, but not people. Finally, speakers must be very careful not to violate the privacy rights of others, especially students and their family members, by mentioning their names or other identifying information. Thank you for your attention to these important rules.
We'll now begin the work session with the Superintendent's Administrative Briefing.
Good morning, Chairman Cummings, members of the board. Pleasure to be here this morning. And as my briefing, I'm really just going to provide some context as to what you will hear during our work session today. As you will see, we have a full audience with our outstanding principals before you. Our first item is the academic school data updates. We will hear from Mr. McGowan a brief update of the district data overall, and quickly followed by Ms. Kynard, who supervises our transformation schools. And our principals are very dedicated, as with Ms. Kynard and her team, to improvement in a very positive manner for our L300 schools. So I thought it was important today for you to hear directly from the principals of the work that they're doing, a quick overview of their data points, and the strategies, most importantly, that they are utilizing to address repeating what's working at their schools where they're seeing progress, and also to address the gaps. And so look forward to that. Quickly followed by, we will talk about student transitions interventions and what the second semester might look like for our students, and as it relates to the pandemic and the continuing conversations we're hearing from the state. So we'll begin with Mr. McGowan, if you're ready, Chairman.
Yes.
Okay, good morning, Madam Superintendent, Chair Cummings, board members, Attorney Powers, and Mrs. Prestopino. Thank you for having us. As Superintendent Gullett had mentioned, I'm here along with Mrs. Kynard, our Transformation Schools Area Director, and our Transformation Principals to provide you an update for our academic data for quarter one. I would like to begin as just some background information regarding our district enrollment. This data was pulled right at the beginning of our QSMA assessment window, October 12th. And I just wanted to highlight, because obviously with our MCPS online students this year, just wanted to highlight the difference between last year and this year. And again, this was pulled a couple of weeks ago, but as you notice, our total enrollment compared to that time last year was a couple thousand students lower than last year. But most importantly, I wanted to point out our MCPS online enrollment versus our traditional. 29,000 approximately to 11,000 approximately, and that's about a 70% to a 30% ratio at the district level. Obviously, as we get into school level data, that will fluctuate, but for district data, that's where we're at, and I think that's important as we talk about our academic data, because we had to take into account our online students versus traditional, and we'll break that down for you. Okay, so we will begin with our district QSMA assessment. I want to take just a moment to review a couple of items. It's been a while since we presented academic data to you, so just as a refresher, the color coding is one item I'd like to remind you of. That really serves two purposes. One is to highlight increases or decreases. Green is an increase, yellow is a decrease. And what I would like to point out in regards to that is any increase or decrease, whether it's 1 percentage point, 10 or 15, it doesn't indicate the degree of an increase or decrease, only that it is an increase or decrease. The other thing that we use the color coding for is to simply visually highlight the cohort performance, as we've done traditionally as we presented to you. So for example, 3rd grade last year in 1920 and 4th grade this year. So we can clearly see that group of students as they transition from last year to this year. We obviously realize that it's not the exact same group of students. It's not a technical survey match. We know students, move in and out of attendance zones and schools, but for the most part, it is a good representation of that cohort of students. The other thing I'd like to point out, which is new this year, you'll notice the chart is a little more involved. We've added in our online versus traditional. As we promised, we'd bring back to you that disaggregation of that data versus those two student groups. But the last column that I would like to point out, you'll notice that has an asterisk, and that asterisk represents a proportional average had to be calculated. This is the first time we've ever had to do that, and the reason being is because we had to take into account that 70 versus 30, remember that we just talked about with enrollment, and how that impacts the score. So I'll give you a brief example. As we look at the math QSMA for 5th grade, you'll look at the second column. Our online average for those online students is 44%. The next column for our traditional students on the same assessment is 53%. If we were to do a normal average, adding the two and dividing, that would come out to 48.5, just a traditional average. But you'll notice what's highlighted in yellow is a 50. So why is that higher than 48.5? And that is simply because the 53% that was earned for those traditional students, we have more traditional students than we have online. Again, approximately 70% versus 30. So we simply took that into account, the weighting difference between the 30% online and the 70% traditional. Otherwise, it would be skewed data if we just simply did a pure average. So you'll notice that in this slide, as well as all the school slides as well. That being said, it's really important to keep in mind, especially as our principals present their data, that sample size at a school compared to the district will vary. Approximately at the district level, we have approximately 3,000 students in a grade level. At a school, that could be 75 or 100 students. So when we look at online versus traditional, you could theoretically have online 15 or 20 students versus 70 or 80 traditional. And so it'll just be important to keep that proportional average in mind as we look, because of the varying sample sizes that we'll see. So I'll dig into the data just a little. So as you can see, and I know you're used to seeing this view in this format, for ELA, our 3rd to 4th grade cohort did decrease by 3 percentage points, and our 4th to 5th grade remained the same at 55. Math, we increased the 4th grade cohort by 3 percentage points, and our 5th grade cohort decreased by 2%. And science decreased by 1% 4th grade and by 1% in 5th grade. What I would like to kind of pause here and kind of bring your attention to is a couple of things. I think that when we left at spring break last year, I think one of our big questions and concerns coming back after 5 months, in addition to our normal summer slide, or summer gap as we would call it, with the COVID gap, we didn't know where our students would be academically. And I'm happy to say that for all intents and purposes, we're at a very similar place that we were at this point last year. So we're not seeing any significant deficits or gaps at the district level. Again, as we get into school level data, those sample sizes are smaller, so you'll see more fluctuation. But as we look at district level data, it's not exact. We do have some decreases in some areas, but again, it's nothing significant. We're not seeing 10, 15 point decreases in any area. It's a couple of points. And as we get into iReady data, you'll see that same trend. It's telling us the same information. The other thing I'd like to point out is in regards to online and traditional. One of the things I know my office specifically heard feedback on giving assessments online, there was a couple of different lines of thought with that. One was, it's an online test, it can't be secured, we're going to see scores be inflated. The other side of that coin was, with potential issues with internet access or computer access, we could see scores way below what we would normally expect. As you can see, there's variations between grade levels and subjects. Some online are higher, some are lower. But again, we're not seeing any significant differences between students who were our online learners and those that were our traditional on-campus learners.
But on the online, you don't really know if the students are answering those or the parents.
So through our proctoring process, it is that the teacher would proctor the assessment via whatever platform they were using, whether it be Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Through the camera, they can see the students taking the
Okay.
assessment.
So they do proctor every student?
Well, that was in our manual to do so, but I will say, no, not in every case. I mean, there were students that maybe didn't have a camera or didn't turn the camera on. And so I don't think I'd feel comfortable saying that every student was proctored, but for the most part, I would think yes. And that was kind of our directions from our office on how to proctor that, because we knew that without a proctoring, we would not have
Not good
results
evidence,
we
no.
could rely on.
Wouldn't be apples for apples compared to the kid in the classroom,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
sure.
Yes, ma'am. As we look at district iReady data, a couple of reminders. Again, I know you've seen this before. As we pull our district diagnostic data, this is an end-of-year view. So this is our most stringent view and way of looking at the data. As a reminder, this is a computerized adaptive assessment. It gives our schools a good indication of where students are performing towards their grade level and also with academic domains. And the reason that we're going to touch on iReady, but really our schools are going to focus on QSMA data is because, as a reminder, our iReady assessment was given at the very beginning of school in August, where our QSMA just completed. So we wanted to provide you rather the most up-to-date academic data that we have. As we look at this data, again, as we look at iReady diagnostic, we really focus on those students in green, which indicate they're on or above level, and students in red that are 2 or grade levels below. What I can tell you, although I don't have it here, is that this is very similar to AP1 or fall of last school year. So just like QSMA data, yes, there's fluctuations here and there, but for the most part, it's telling us that our students are right where they were at this point last school year.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes, sir.
McDowell. So what you're telling us is that the greens are the one that's on or above.
On or above.
The reds and yellows are not.
Correct.
And I ain't that bright, but I'm just looking at this. When I see that, and I'm looking at both of them, reading and math. First grade, there's a red, and the red continues to get bigger as they go up per grade level. So there's something missing. If the red is getting bigger and the red and yellow is getting bigger from grade level from first grade, then obviously we're not doing something that we need to be doing at first grade to prevent that.
So what I can say in regards to that, and you'll notice that at the kindergarten level, of course, there's no red because they're in
Correct.
kindergarten, so it can't be 2 years below. But we've traditionally seen that at the K1 level, is that there is less red, and then that does increase as
So that means they're going to the next grade level and they're not being prepared to
Amen.
succeed. So that means there's an issue that either they need to be held back at first grade prior to them pushing them up. Am I saying the wrong thing? Y'all not?
That's what my absolute argument for 8 years is we have the highest pass rate in the state of Florida, but we're one of the lowest performing districts in the state of Florida. There is a connection.
Because I'm saying it compounded year after year after year from first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. The problem's not getting resolved. We're just pushing the problem up another grade. Am I saying it wrong?
No,
Tell me
you're
if I'm
exactly
wrong.
right. You're exactly right. Our high, and it's got nothing to do with low socioeconomic. I've gone through that completely to ad nauseum. Nothing to do with low socioeconomic, because of our top 5 school districts in the state of Florida, 2 or 3 are lower socioeconomically than we are. But yet they're like District 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the state. But guess what? They have the highest retainage in the state also.
Well, I can I can interject here as an area director in 11 of the elementary schools. I will say you're correct, and I will also acknowledge that thanks to your initiative and really pointing some of this out to us last year. I know that you worked with Ms. Beck and her team. I know Ms. Thrower was there as well. I was there for several of the meetings. We involved teachers And I can tell you that now, thanks to that process, the teachers are a part of that decision-making as well as our school-based administrators, as well as parents are part of the process of students that need to be retained. There's a process now, as you know, where we look at all of the data for that student and how that child has done that year before we decide to promote or retain. And I know last year there were more, it was hard to look at last year because of the time we were out, right? Right, but we did, there were, even with that, I know Ms. Beck and her team met with administrators who had met with their teams of teachers, and there were more students in the lower grades that were retained last year. And I can assure you that I believe that we would see more of that this year, staying in school for a full year.
Your top school districts hold back about 10,000% more children than we hold back. 10,000%, okay?
Yes, and we did talk about that at length last year, and I'm really glad to hear that we didn't forget that conversation even within all of the craziness. So I'm not sure at all that what we're seeing today is going to be reflective of what we'll be seeing next year. My only other comment is that we also do need to be careful, because when a student has been retained twice or more, we also know that that's a huge red flag on our early warning system for, graduation and crime and things like that. So, but the fact that we were so far at the other end of the spectrum, it's good, that the great work that everyone did to rectify that. So I'll be even more interested to see next year's,
Right.
to be honest with you.
Because when I'm looking at it, I'm seeing
Yeah,
pretty
more of the
much
same.
same data that
Right.
we've seen for the last couple of years.
Right.
Really, no change from what I'm seeing. I'm about ready to say we don't need to see the rest of it, because I already know that we're going to be seeing much of the same thing, correct?
Well,
With some moderate deviations, but it's pretty much going to be the same.
So I think
Adam.
sorry.
go ahead.
I think what we're proud to show you today is the QSMA data, and we're not going to show you the AP 1 iReady data from each school, right? Because that's the very beginning, and that does show them at their level that they're at. The QSMA was taken at the end of the quarter, and we know that that tested their proficiency on the standards that we taught, right? Those tier 1 standards. And so each principal will share their one slide of their QSMA data that was taken by their students at the end of quarter 1, and they're going to address the deficits, some of their growths, because some of them did have cohort to cohort growths, and they're going to begin to tell you their action plan for what they already have in place at their school level, and next steps as we move forward as well.
And
So I think that's important for them to be able to
I
share
want to
today.
comment one thing to what Ms. Thrower said, because I will be leaving. When we hear the old mantra, well, it damages your self-esteem when we hold them back a couple of years, and it does this and it does that. We can either postpone the inevitable. I believe it's very damaging to their self-esteem to be in high school and not be able to read, and end up in prison because they have to sell drugs because they don't qualify for a job. We're either going to damage your self-esteem in 3rd and 4th grade, or we're going to destroy their life at the end.
I agree with
We
you.
all want the same thing.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I can't see.
Nothing's
Continue
more
to kick that can
self-esteem
down the
damaging
road.
than to be committed to prison because you can't get a job and you have to steal.
Absolutely. And I think everybody in this room could agree we all want the same goals for our students, right? We want them to leave elementary school being a proficient reader.
Exactly.
Because
Whatever
that
it
puts the
takes.
skills in their hands to do any of the 3 E's they want, right? They'll have student choices in life and life choices. And that's what's important to all of us. And we just look forward to all of your support as we try to make that happen for all of our students.
It is a new way.
And all means all.
If we keep kicking them down the road, pushing them up, we as a district are taking away those options. We all are responsible for taking away the options if we keep pushing them up the grade level and not make sure they have what they need at that base level to be successful at the next grade level.
Absolutely. And it takes a team in order to make
Yes.
that happen for each student.
But the good news is the student progression plan, Ms. Beck did a fantastic job with it, because it was a student progression plan that I saw that was disastrous, that held no one accountable. It was completely disastrous that I brought to the attention of this board with my other research. And I want to say Ms. Beck did a fabulous job. The progression plan's now written where the student, instead of we think they might be successful, if we push them on, that we definitely believe they will be. And then the principals held to that. So we did some verbiage and we did lots of things, but the teachers and Ms. Beck did a great job. The student progression plan school board is incredibly different than it was a couple of years ago. And thanks to all your work and everything, things are going to get better. They really are.
And Chairman Cummings, members of the board, if I could, what you're going to hear today, and our focus is on strategies and how do we reach every child? And for children who do need what I would describe as a gift of time, because they have not yet acquired and mastered those standards and skills, they might need more time. And for others, they need other accommodations. And so we have to get child by child. And the purpose of today to hear directly from principals is how they're looking at their data, how they're addressing the needs of every child. And I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you.
I'm really glad that the principals are here because these are your kids. I mean, they're all of our kids, but in the end, you're making it happen every day. So I'm really excited that you're here and to hear it from you.
And the principal does make the final decision on progression. He is by state statute, the principal's making these decisions. And when we were forcing the principals to move people forward, we were really putting their reputation on the line, because if their next level of kids didn't perform, we took it out on the principal, moved the principal around, where we didn't give him the authority to withhold a child that he knew needed to be withheld. But yet, statute says it's his fault if they're moved forward. Pretty much, it's up to the principal. So, school board, these principals, they have the final word, and
They need our support.
we need to support them in it.
So let's hear from them. Let's let them continue.
So before I turn it over to Ms. Conard, I do want to mention a couple other things I forgot to mention in the opening, and that is, although you'll be hearing from our transformation principals with their data, you will find in your email inbox the same PowerPoint with all of our schools, including middle and high school. In addition, we are finalizing our quick fact sheets. I know that we've produced those for you before, so those will be emailed to you prior to Thanksgiving break. And traditionally, they've only been produced for elementary schools, but beginning this year, we will also include secondary schools. So you have a school quick fact sheet for every school as well prior to Thanksgiving break.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you, Mr. McGowan. All right, good morning. I want to say that I am very proud to be here today representing all of our transformation schools and principals, as well as my colleagues, Mr. Whitehouse and Dr. Hembrook, as I share with you what we've been focusing on this first 9 weeks. We are certainly working with our school-based teams to monitor each student. We're progress monitoring their data academically, their social emotional data needs, as well as we continue to close that academic gap in our students. We've also been facilitating coaching cycles in each of their schools with our school-based teams as we continue to analyze those trends in the classrooms, and we continue to have a focus on that Tier 1 instruction. And you mentioned it earlier. It all goes back to our Tier 1 instruction and what tasks we're putting in front of our students, and that student talk, the student discourse with each other. Not so much looking at the teacher and what the teacher is doing, but looking at what our students are doing and the tasks that are being put in front of them, and whether or not our learners, our student learners, are engaged with that student discourse and academic discourse, working on trying to increase that instructional rigor and all of the academic outcomes for all of our students and our student subgroups. We're also working hard with our administrators in our administrator meetings. We have been surveying every one of our principals and assistant principals at the end of our professional meetings with them so that we can tweak the next meetings to best meet their needs. There's been a strong focus the first quarter, and again, on that Tier 1 instruction and ensuring all student tasks are aligned to the depth of the standards being taught in the classrooms. There was a strong focus on collaborative planning in our schools, and on the October Learning Professional Day, each of the schools with their school-based teams, we pushed in curriculum support as they needed it as well, especially with our transformation schools, so that they were meeting with their teachers and they were taking the time to break down the entire second quarter of standards as they planned for that second quarter of instruction, not only planning for the Tier 1 instruction for second quarter, but also looking at their QSMA data and being able to have time to plan for those the reteaching of the skills that the students may not have grasped on the first quarter. keeping in mind that a lot of our students we have not seen since March. So they really had to wrap their arms around the entire team at the school-based level to make those strong academic plans for each individual child. For the purpose of today, we will certainly hear from each transformation principal as they review their QSMA data for quarter one and really go into those action plans of strategies, as Dr. Gullett mentioned, that each of them are implementing at their school level and their next steps that they're taking as well. And again, as Mr. McGowan mentioned, you'll see the QSMA data today for each school, but all of their data, attendance, discipline, iReady data will be on those quick facts that'll be published for you before Thanksgiving break. So at this time, thank you, Mr. McGowan. At this time, I'm going to have the first three principals come up from Anthony Elementary, Bellevue, and College Park. And the first principal that we're going to hear from today is from Anthony Elementary, Mr. Matt Johnson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Dr. Gullett, and school board members. Thank you for the privilege of being here this morning. I want to share some highlights for Anthony Elementary as well as address some areas of growth. To begin with the positives, our fourth grade students were within 2 to 3 points of the district average in all tested areas. Our fifth grade students were also within 2 to 3 points of the district average for both the math and science assessment. On the flip side though, our biggest areas for growth are in fifth grade ELA and in all content areas for third grade. This particular group of students struggled last year in second grade, as evidenced by the fact that only 23% were at grade level for both reading and math, as measured by the first iReady diagnostic. These deficiencies were compounded with the loss of in-person instruction during the pandemic. Since we had this information coming into the school year though, we were very intentional about getting these students into appropriate interventions right away in order to help address the foundational gaps. In addition to providing that support to our third grade students, we have had a sense of urgency to address the needs of our students who are having difficulty learning online as well. We made the decision early on to allow our students struggling with the technology and at-home learning model to return throughout the first quarter instead of continuing to lose the opportunity for in-person learning by waiting until the second quarter. This, though, resulted in as many as 50 students coming back to sit for the first quarter QSMA with only a few weeks of true face-to-face instruction before taking it. We began the year with approximately 135 students online, and as of today, we only have about 54 students online. As students are returning to Anthony, though, we've continued to be intentional with screening them to ensure that we are strategically scheduling them to best address their academic needs and opportunities for enrichment. It is important for me to point out that our student population includes a significant number of students in exceptional student education. At Anthony Elementary, 1 in 4 of our students has an IEP, both in inclusion and self-contained settings. We house 4 ASD modified curriculum units for the north end of the county. So to better serve this population of students, we were very purposeful when we made the master schedule, staggering instructional blocks to ensure that our support facilitation teachers are able to get into these teachers' classrooms to provide support. Instead of focusing on the barriers, we have made an effort to help shift the mindset of staff members feeling overwhelmed by the academic discrepancies to prioritize and offer ongoing support. Our school improvement plan goals revolve around improving Tier 1 instruction in all subjects. First and foremost, we are accomplishing this by holding 2 days per week of intentional, focused grade level collaborative planning meetings, centered around standards-based, data-driven academic planning. 1 day for ELA and social studies and 1 day for science and math. During collaborative conversations, we are embedding timely professional development as well. Since I've been back at Anthony Elementary as the principal, we have focused our professional development efforts on implementation of programs. This year, however, there's a focus on the actual pedagogy of delivering quality Tier 1 instruction. For example, best practices have been shared on planning relevant academic tasks that align to the learning goal and questions that engage students in making the sense of their learning. Through question strategies and classroom discussions, strategies are being shared on how to collect evidence of student learning in order to address misconceptions or extend learning in the moment, instead of waiting for days or weeks to remediate. This cyclical planning and delivery process will continue to be our focus for all subjects. At Anthony, we have always used data to drive decisions, but this year we have been very intentional about monitoring data throughout to address different needs that arise as they arise. For instance, we have a very small but wonderful group of paraprofessionals that we use to support specific teachers and students when the data dictates it. They push into these teachers' classes during the differentiated instruction block like the support facilitators, to provide targeted remediation to these specific groups of students. The assistant principal and I will also meet with all of our bottom quartile students and fifth grade students to have individual data chats with each one of them. We ultimately want them to know that we care enough about each one of them to know how they are doing on their assessments, and then that we are there for them if they ever need anything. Through this data review process, I've realized how many new students we actually have this year, and that makes me proud. I'm proud that we build a culture and reputation here where parents want to bring their kids to Anthony Elementary. In fact, just this year, we've received 29 new students from other schools in just 3rd through 5th grade. That is almost 20% of the total population of those grade levels. To wrap it all up, I just want to say how proud I am to be the principal at my alma mater. I love Anthony Elementary, and I love my students and staff. Thank you again for the opportunity to share these highlights with you.
I'm going to clap for every single one of you when you're done. My hat is off.
I won't be here, and I'd like to say thank you to you. There's been different times when parents will call me and they would want to talk to me about different issues. You were always right there. You came in, you had great conversations with me, with the parents, and you know, I think you have excellent parental support there. And the way you handle the parents in such a kind, non-condescending way was impressive.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Johnson.
Thank you.
Always, you know,
Any other
I'll
questions?
call you in a minute, so it don't make a difference.
Anytime.
And when you walk Mr. Johnson's campus there at Anthony, he knows all the students by name.
Exactly. And
I
he
wonder
knows
if you know those 29 yet.
I'm working on it. Like that's when I really realized it. I'm like, I don't know him and him and him.
It was always a pleasure, though, to go to your school. When a parent had some kind of issue that she wanted to talk to me about, from busing to whatever, it was always a pleasure.
Before we go forward, he gave some information that I thought was valuable, that I hope we kind of get from every principal, and if not, I'm asking that they will get it to us, that you guys will get this information. How many kids are still online, MCPS online, and how many kids in your school are on an IEP? Because I think that's some valuable information for us to know.
Absolutely. Many are going to give their online numbers today, and if not, I can give that to you.
Thank you.
And IEP numbers as well.
Mr. Johnson, how many students are at Anthony right now,
We have
roughly?
about 396 right now.
Okay.
395, 396, something in that area.
And you're over capacity, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, we lost our VPK unit and a couple of our ASD units. They moved because of a lack of space, because we just have so many kids that are coming in. But we pretty much filled all. I mean, we're back up to that 400 number where we usually are not.
They went under capacity for a hot second, and they filled up quickly, and so now they're no more.
No room at the end.
All right, at this time, I would like to introduce from Bellevue Elementary, Dr. Stacy Reese.
Good morning, everyone. The focus of instruction for Bellevue Elementary is on Tier 1 for K through our kindergarten through 5th grade classrooms. After reviewing the shared data, we have identified a current strength in our 3rd grade. The QSMA data reports show us as being within 1 point of ELA and math in comparison to the district's average. We are happy to report our 3rd grade science score has surpassed the district's average. Our 4th grade data shows our students performing within 2 points for both ELA and math. We are showing a 5% increase in the math cohort compared to where they were last year this time. 5th grade has been identified as our area of growth. Based on what has been analyzed so far this year, we were within 3 percentage points in all 3 subject areas of the district's average. We currently have a 3-person team in our 5th grade, consisting of instruction for ELA, social studies, science, and math. The 4th teacher is responsible for all subjects that is in our online platform. Actions taken to support the area of growth have already started. The ELA and math content area specialists are working with our 3-person team to restructure the ELA and math block through mini lessons and remediation in small group instructions, of course following our health and safety guidelines for classrooms. Students in small group instruction are identified by formative assessment results to determine reteach of standards not mastered. Teachers are also looking at prerequisite skills not mastered to assist with closing those gaps. In addition, for ELA, Mrs. Lewandowski, our literacy CAS, is co-teaching with our ELA teacher. The science program specialist from the elementary curriculum department is working with our 5th grade science teacher to plan and co-teach for second quarter. They are looking at an item specs, prerequisite skills, question types to ensure small group instruction are being met for the needs of each of our individual students. We are also in the planning stage for our after-school tutoring program that will be offered to our 5th graders as well, who scored a level 2 during the 18-19 FSA assessment and 50% or below on our current QSMA data. To address standards, test-taking strategies, responding to different types of questioning formats. In addition, we are also contacting parents of children who are online to get them back to return to our traditional instruction with the hopes of improved outcomes. Currently, we have 16% of our students, so that's about 100 students currently K-5 that are online. We are proud of our teachers who are working hard to improve the lives of our students.
So I can say that when I visit Bellevue Elementary, from when I started, the culture has definitely changed. There is tremendous learning going on, and it's due to Dr. Reese and her leadership. So thank you, Dr. Reese.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I too have to say, I visit there often, that a few years ago they were not in a good place. But I saw the work that Dr. Reese has instituted and the people that she's placed in certain places to address those deficiencies. And I have to give you kudos on that because you have really changed that culture out there. So thank you for what you're doing. And we know that you're going to get some more greater gains out there as well. So thanks. And you still say you have 100 kids, about 100 kids online?
Yes, we are currently working on phone calls and what we are calling CST meetings, just having conversation with the parents to have them, for some of our struggling students, to return. So as of today, we had 7 of those students that are unsuccessful online return, and we're still working towards having more return by Monday, November 9th.
How many students do you have overall? How many students do you have overall?
We currently have approximately 598 students,
And 100 online still?
and 100 of those are online.
600.
How many students do you believe that are going to return?
We are trying to get back 30 students to return based off of our report card grades and QSMA data. And so out of those 30, 7 has already returned, and I think it's like 9 more that's returning Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask a question before we get to College Park, and I'm sure the other principals can kind of have some input with this. We heard Mr. McGowan say that we did not have such a major slide because of COVID and because of the summer, which we normally would have. I'm asking this question, do you think that by us having that summer school that we had this summer in the midst of, did that help? I'm seeing a lot of heads saying.
I agree.
Up and
I
down.
think it did help, especially because we had a smaller group of students that were able to work, and we were able to work more individualized on their deficiencies to get them caught up before.
And that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that maybe the smaller summer schools help prevent the huge slide that we could have had based on the time that we went out from March to the time that we came back. So maybe, Dr. Gulp, that may be something that we may need to look at. And Mark,
We're able to get our little ones in there
And
too.
then
That we usually it's 3rd grade reading camp and
Right.
whatever, but we were able to get kindergarten and 1st grade, and I think that
and
helped.
maybe we need to look at having like 2 or 3 different sessions of summer school, small groups of sessions of summer school that could help, because we have to start moving up and it's not just being status quo, and maybe there can be some things that can help us go forward, so we can start moving up the scale and start, instead of staying at the same.
Yeah,
And the data,
I agree.
yeah.
Because when I was looking at those numbers, and I'm just trying to be quiet because I want to hear what you guys say, but I would be curious what the end of the year looks like, because immediately I'm thinking summer slide, pandemic slide, and when we saw that red, but that's what I was thinking, but I know that it's important to not lose that valuable time.
Correct.
And the data reflects too, because in kindergarten, we begin to see the reds creeping in first grade. And, the conversation about, retain or not retain, I'd rather focus on getting it right the first time, and so I love that idea. And when I visited Maplewood during their summer, the kids were all engaged, which is pretty difficult to accomplish. The numbers were small, the teachers, were there, they were all about it. It was great. I would definitely
Chairman
support
Cummings,
that
members of the
again.
board, I think it's important to mention two things. We are not working to maintain. We are working on the trajectory to accelerate.
Good.
I see shaking of heads because I talk about this all the time. I just want to make that very clear. We're not trying to meet our past district numbers. We need to exceed those promptly and quickly. The other piece that I think you're going to see as the pattern and trend is that we're not talking about programs. There are no programs that solve this problem. This is about hard work and strategies, uniquely designed to meet the needs of every child, data-based conversations, and providing prompt and efficient ways to adjust and change that course. And to your point in recommendations about summer schools, Saturday schools, we have to try to mitigate those gaps that you saw in the red, to try to decrease that and change that, because somebody's not getting what they need. We have to address those. And in a lot of cases, we know small group instruction and other ways of learning are critical. So I thought it was important to.
That's what I wanted to hear, Dr. Gullett. I wanted to hear, not programs, I wanted to hear what you're saying. I want to hear strategies, because the strategy, being strategic we're in a war, seriously, and you have to be strategic in wars. And I need to hear the strategy that's going to help us take the line. And that's what I'm hearing you guys giving this morning. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Reese. At this time, we'll hear from College Park Elementary, Ms. Terry Forsythe.
Good morning from College Park. Numbers, since we're talking about numbers, we have 757 students currently. We had, sorry, not enough.
Take your time. Somebody give us some water.
Ask are a lovely thing. We had 35% of our students online, and we are now down to 18% of our students that are online, which is 146 students at this moment. So as we look at our data, we're encouraged to see that there's not as much COVID decline as you're talking about as we thought there might be, so we're encouraged by that. Our current third graders are within 2 points of the district average in ELA and 7 points over the district average in math. Our fifth graders average 3 percentage points over their scores from last year in ELA and remain the same in math. In science, our fifth graders average 3 points higher in quarter one than they did the previous year. This was 6 points over last year's fifth graders. However, knowing we scored 6 points below the district average in the nature of science standards, we're implementing a hands-on science routine to help students grasp those nature of science standards. It also emphasizes science vocabulary to support our English language learners. We're also beginning a science review for our fifth graders in a game format in the cafeteria, which they really enjoy. There's incentives, and we had success with that last year, so we hope to continue that work in science. So to plan for improvement in ELA and math, we're focusing on our collaborative planning sessions with teachers. We have those 2 days a week, also 1 day for ELA, 1 day for math, and we're helping them break down their data to the student level. In these sessions, teachers are also working together to create remediation groups based on the standards that need remediation in order to move those students to proficiency. We utilize the past district in-service days for teachers to work together to prepare those remediation lessons on those quarter one standards to use in their small groups moving forward. Also, on the teacher in-service day, we previewed the standards for quarter two and began to prepare for rigorous instruction by gathering the resources needed to teach those standards in the weeks ahead. As we look at our data, we see vocabulary instruction being a high need area. If you look at our demographics, 48% of College Park students identify as Hispanic, with 150 of our students working toward English language proficiency. To help them, we're working closely with our 10 ESOL paraprofessionals to implement targeted small group instruction in vocabulary and comprehension skills. We're also targeting vocabulary in all small group sessions for all students. Now that we're settling in and we have a way of work, we're looking forward to those Q2 QSMAs so that we can see the growth that our students are making, because I feel like there will be a lot.
Thank you.
You deserve it.
How many of our students from Evergreen moved over to you?
Well, it's a little hard for me to grasp that kind of data. I tell my staff, I said I don't separate them. They're all hours now, so I try not to separate too much. So I don't have the exact number. You know, I can say about 70, but that's it's a little hard for me to pull
72 there about a week ago when I looked.
Oh, good.
But I will tell you, there was a bigger population of students that were rezoned. And I know McGowan has the exact numbers, but what we found is there's approximately 72 that actually remained in College Park's zone that are attending there. And I love that Ms. Forsythe says those are our kids, right? Because those are their kids. So I appreciate that. But I will say that there are probably 4 or 5 other schools around that area where they ended up, and even there's some at Anthony, which is not around there, right? Because they all have school choice. And so they didn't all end up in the zone of College Park.
Okay.
Let me ask a question, Ms. Forsythe. You do have a high number, high percentage of Hispanic kids. Do you have the resources that you need as far as the paras and the ESOL paras? Do you have what you need to reach those kids?
The district's been really responsive to that. We have 10 ESOL paraprofessionals that we work with in classrooms, so I feel like that they're doing.
I think you may have like one of the higher percentages for Hispanic kids, am I, in the county?
I think.
Yeah.
But also, if you look at scores over time, they also are the ones that are helping our data grow. So
Correct.
they're making great.
Thank you.
Right, we've actually used her ELL population data at College Park, and this is my first year at College Park with Ms. Forsythe, but we've been using her data for that subgroup to emulate at our other schools that have that ELL subgroup in what they're doing at College Park, because what they're doing is working based on the data of her ELL population, and she does have a very large population there.
Good. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys very much. At this time, as they return to their seats, we're going to hear from East Marion Elementary, Emerald Shores Elementary, and Evergreen Elementary principals.
I'll leave that water there. Yeah.
And I have some extra later for anybody. All right, thank you very much. First, we're going to hear from Miss Deborah Board Schaefer, principal at East Marion Elementary, the jewel of the forest. She is. That's good.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here this morning representing East Marion Elementary. East Marion isn't just a school in the forest, it is a hidden jewel in the forest. And it has been an integral part of the forest community for almost 100 years. In September of 2022, it will celebrate 100 years of a school being on that site. Wow. And I'm planning a big to-do. Our mission...
You're planning the party.
Yes,
Invite us.
Yes, invite us.
You're welcome to join us. Our mission at East Marion is not only to impact student achievement, but to also impact our students' lives. For many of our students, generational poverty is the norm. And oftentimes, other things in their lives impact their ability to access instruction or to be academically successful. However, their resilience and their willingness to come to school every day and learn is humbling to me as an educator. So the onus is on me and our staff to give them the experiential activities and experiences they need to build a foundation to go on and be successful academically. Our current enrollment at East Marion is 578 students, with 81% of our students in the traditional setting, and approximately 18% continuing with MCPS Online, Marion e-Learning, Florida Virtual, or the Home Ed program. As our students return to East Marion, we've experienced a positive increase in our attendance. This fact alone is significant as it provides the necessary instructional minutes for our students to be academically successful and to access instruction. As we look at the quarter one data, keep in mind that the two subgroups at East Marion greatest need are economically disadvantaged students and our students with disabilities. These two groups have struggled historically over the years at East Marion. Based on the information presented, we see that when compared to the district, we are within, I'm not going to talk about all the percentages and stuff because we've heard a lot of that and all of our schools are very similar. However, the interesting thing is that our ELA scores stay well within range of the district. What I'm seeing as we're looking at the data for our math, it's significantly discrepant when we go from our 4th grade cohort to our 5th grade. There was a decrease from 54% to 39%. So I'm thinking about that and I say, why is that? And so if we look at our students who are enrolled at East Marion, 578 of them, 464 of those are economically disadvantaged, with 90 students being students with disability. Those students don't have the same access to experiences and parental support than our normal regular ed students. When reviewing our East Marion averages for ELA, math, and science, and specifically in 3rd through 5th grades, there was a significant disparity revealed between our regular students and our students with disability. A large portion of my students fall into the bottom quartile. So we have to really be focusing our energies on supporting our students in ELA, math, and specifically our 5th grade students in the math area. They don't have that connection to some of the standards. They don't have the foundational skills, and as we go through the action plan, I will share some of those things. They don't have the foundational skills to be able to concretely go from concrete to abstract, which is algebraic thinking, and those kinds of things. As part of the planning effective standards-based instruction, there will be an emphasis on instructional practices that are basically going to focus on basic skills. I know there was conversation about how we were looking at our iReady data, and we see that they go from kindergarten to 1st to 2nd, and that red grows and grows and grows. So I understand about retention, but I agree with, I'm sorry. Ms. Thrower, that we have to really focus on the instruction, the basic instruction, our practices as teachers, supporting our teachers and providing strategic lessons, developing lessons, and whatnot. For our students with disabilities, we are supplementing their ELA math instruction with research-based interventions based on their learning goals and instructional levels based on their IEPs. And we're doing that by providing targeted remediation and support from our ESE personnel. The purpose of this focus on on Tier 1 instruction, pre-K to 5th grade, is to provide administrative support to all of our teachers. In K2, our instructional focus is on foundational skills in both ELA and math, while in grades 3 through 5, we're focusing on fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. We monitor our MTSS groups to ensure that our interventions are being delivered with fidelity and that students are showing appropriate response to intervention. And as our students are returning from online, they are being screened and placed into an appropriate intervention so that we're not losing that instructional time. In response to the results of our assessment data, the administrative team at East Marion, with the assistance from the transformational specialist, we have developed a year-long framework for instruction with a 20-day monthly action plan that routinely is reviewed and modified as needed. This constant examination of our plan is our way of responding to the data and to provide our teachers with the support and feedback they need to develop effective instructional practices. We have a number of new teachers in our K2 classrooms. So I have tasked our CISs to develop a coaching cycle for each of them, focusing on planning, classroom routines and procedures, and teacher-led small group instruction, because that's where I feel some of the deficits are. I'm currently working along with I personally am working with my ELA content area specialist to support my K2 teachers in the area of planning, pacing, and instructional practices. My assistant principal is working with our math science CAS in grades 3 through 5 to strengthen basic math fluency, build content-specific vocabulary, and increase students' comprehension of informational tasks. This support occurs routinely during our collaborative meetings, where we review student data and have instruction, and how the instruction was impacted, how the instruction impacted their performance on the assessment, while using the guiding question for collaborative planning as a framework for finding those answers. To address our deficits in science, we are ensuring that our 4th and 5th grade students have weekly lab time in our STEM lab utilizing STEM scopes, as well as partnering with Silver River to integrate some of their lessons that they have that are aligned to our standards for science and social studies, not only in 4th grade, but also in 5th grade. I'm also working with our extended day program to develop a STEM, after-school STEM program that will coincide with our Title I tutoring in the 2nd semester. The staff at East Marion continues to support our MCPS online students by organizing student materials, as well as providing them with all the manipulatives they need. We consolidated all of our math manipulatives prior to beginning school, kept what we needed for ourselves, and individually made packets for them as the students needed them for each unit. So they are routinely organizing that material. We are also leveraging additional personnel to support online teachers when providing small group instruction. That was one of the areas of concern that we had because the teachers were not able to have that one-on-one. So pushing in a para to do a small group allowed the teacher to take over those things. In closing, I must share that I'm encouraged to know that East Marion Elementary will no longer be referred to as a bottom 300 school, but rather a school of transformation. I believe that within transformation lies pathways to out-of-the-box solutions, opportunities for growth, and most importantly, for my students, hope for the future. Thank you for your support.
Ms. Schaefer, how many kids online?
Right now, and it's changing daily, I'll be honest with you. I had a call yesterday. We have approximately 109, but based on the letters that I sent for students that were failing, I think that number will go down more, and right now I'm looking at about 80 online.
About
80?
80
80
after the letters.
after the letters. I'll know more by next week.
Thank you. Good job.
Yeah. Well, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna, Mr. Cummings mentioned earlier to College Park about, the Hispanic population, but not Evergreen, sorry. East Marion, I was thinking Evergreen. They're, like you said, they're poverty and different, and I guess our question to you is, do you have what you need to accommodate your students? Like, do we have I know technology is a big thing and stuff like that.
We are working on things. What I have found, when you're teaching children of poverty, you have to give them experiences. So that was the premise behind really creating the STEM lab and bringing resources into them. So because they don't have that content language. So if I'm looking at trying to have them understand something about Shakespeare, they don't understand what that means. So, bringing in a play, making that, it has to be a real world connection. So to answer your question, I could use some extra support with my students with disabilities because we're spread out. So being able to have more inclusive kind of support. So I have 2 VE self-contained classrooms. I'm trying to bring those children into the mainstream. But don't quite have enough support to do that in an inclusive setting.
So, Ms. Schaefer, a lot of your children live in the forest and are very mobile. They're living in tents and cars, and so I mean, we're talking children who very seldom even have a roof over their head. So they're in survival mode.
And I'm very thankful, I must say, to all of you during the summer if it wasn't through your efforts and Mrs. Kiner. It's humbling. That's all I can tell you.
So giving them experiences that they have never had before helps tremendously.
It does, because I'm speaking personally. I'm a child of that kind of life, and I understand the significance of having someone give you an experience so you broaden your horizons. You never know what you don't have unless you see it.
Right, got to have a window.
That's right.
And I'm one of those people that's a true believer that it's hard to educate a kid if they're still wondering about where they're going to be sleeping at night,
Where they're
or
hungry.
if their next meal is coming
So,
from.
in light of that,
Right.
you have discipline issues occur because
Correct.
they're quote-unquote stealing.
Correct.
They're not, they're
They're surviving.
So trying to change the mindset of some of, our adults. And I had a conversation with them yesterday. Many of our children come with so much baggage. It's their children. When you have a kindergartner who's already given up, so our job is to change, is to
Correct.
flip that switch, but do it in such a way that's respectful.
And I think that's the role that East Marion has to play by it being that jewel in the forest. It has to be that shining light for those kids that don't have that exposure in other ways, and education has to be that way for them.
Well, you can see the trend, and it's a trust factor. They have to trust you.
Correct.
And if they don't trust you, then you're not going to get anything from them, and they're not going to learn. They're not going to want to learn. And I know that Dr. Gullett has said, we have to create those situations where students create their own learning. And by giving them experiences, that's where it starts, I believe.
I'm excited to hear about your partnership with Silver River. Hey, can you just speak to that just a quick second?
We've been able to go to the river, but because of the situation, I decided, we'll just make East Marion an annex of that by incorporating the lessons that they have. That curriculum basically aligns itself with the 4th grade social studies, science and social studies. It's perfect. And they have so many resources there. And if you've not been to the forest, please come. It's like we are in the middle of the forest, and it's like going to a national park.
All of a sudden, you
It's
just
beautiful. It really is
beautiful little
beautiful.
school.
Yep.
It's a beautiful school, but the time I've come out there, every time 3 snakes cross the road. I don't do snakes.
Funny.
So they cross the road going into the school and coming out. So I said, y'all don't want me to come back out here again.
Oh, that's funny. The last time I was there was a rooster that greeted me. He's like, hey.
About it at East Marion, because we'll hear them say, Miss Wendy, there's a little friend by the door in building 8, and it's a snake.
It's a snake. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
You must take the main road and not the side road, Reverend.
Y'all didn't tell me about the side road.
I do want to reiterate, too, just for the public, so that they understand the support that Ms. McCall, Reverend Cummings, all of you on the board gave to many of our schools that are on the outskirts during the pandemic and during the summertime. And that was the backpack programs that we always had going with Interfaith. When Interfaith was a great support for us as well, but when Interfaith's cupboards were bare, the community and your support with holding food drives in your neighborhoods, holding food drives at churches, just the community support, because our parents and our community for schools like East Marion, they look to that school for that support in not only academic needs for their students, but first and foremost for food and to be able to eat. And I know that Ms. Board Schaefer called me several times during the pandemic situation where parents had made it to the school and they were looking for food. And so many of you went out and delivered, and you were again holding those food drives. And so we do appreciate that.
And I'd like to say something about East Marion. I remember a time back in probably when I used to study the test scores back in the early 90s, when East Marion was one of our top performing elementary schools in the district. What was the principal? He was Howard Middle principal, involved with Children's Alliance.
Scott Hackman.
Scott was out there, and I remember we were hearing about, back in the day when I was a young mom and activist, and I remember hearing, oh, this school's not doing well because of low socioeconomic, and this school's not doing. And so I started looking at the scores, and I called Scott Hackmeyer, and I said, wait a minute. you're beating all the odds. Your school has a lower socioeconomic status than many of these schools over here. And so there is hope but things have changed. Things have changed. I guess the people that were there 30 years ago, they've kind of retired, moved away. Their families have dispersed. But I do remember a time when it was one of the top performing elementary schools in the county in 1990.
It will be again.
It will be.
So there's hope. I'm telling you, there is a hope because it was there.
My students have all the potential, that they have all the qualities. We have to be able to make sure that they understand that they can do it.
Right.
You know, and provide them in the direction that they need to go, give them the support that they need, but still, I hold them accountable. And, you know, I know it's difficult, but if I can be successful, so can you.
Did I hear you say you had 90 kids that were with disabilities?
Students with disability, yes, yes.
Are you getting the same type of resources out there for them as well?
We are, yes, we're working with them, especially because my background is in ESE. I started out my career at College Park as a self-contained teacher.
Oh, good.
So I understand the need to give those students those types of experience, hands-on activities, because they have to have the concrete before they can do the abstract.
Do you have any runners?
Do I have any runners?
Was he out there the other day with us? I feel like he was watching. I saw that.
Do you have any what?
Runners. There's always a few runners at East Marion.
I was going to say, it's called eloping.
Listen, that's the wrong school to run from. There's nothing but woods out there.
They head straight for the
Afraid
woods.
of the woods. They're not afraid of the woods, no.
But to answer your question, we do have students that elope. In that building is an older building. It's an open concept. So yes, we just, and Ms. Kynard was able to come on Tuesday, was it?
Thank you for maintaining. I said it came out jokingly, but the serious part of that is you're in the forest, and that could be a hard situation if a kid got away out there.
Well, you've got
Like
our
Ms.
fence.
King just reminded,
Yeah.
she said they know the woods, but that could still be
It's dangerous.
a bad situation.
It is, yeah.
But in any case, we have families that bring students, and we're there more to support the families as we are. We have a student that Ms. Kynard was able to observe, ASD, nonverbal, just a little kinder with nothing. So we're working on that, thank gosh.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, thank you, Ms. Board Schaefer. We appreciate always hearing from you at East Marion. Next, we'll hear from Ms. Stacy Houston, principal at Emerald Shores Elementary.
Good morning, school board members. So I typed really big, hoping that I could see it without my glasses, but it's not going to work. So bear with me when I start to fog up. Before reviewing the QSMA data that you're seeing up here, I want to talk a little bit because I'm very, very lucky to be in my 5th year as the principal at Emerald Shores, and I absolutely love this school. I know I was brought there for a reason. In those 5 years, we've had 3 years of FSA data that we can look at because I'm in my 5th year, and there have been ups and downs in relation to our school grade. What I have noticed, though, in that 3 years of data is we always do well in our increases in learning gains, specifically in the area of reading, because that is a strong focus at our school, being in the bottom 300. But the other thing I noticed last year was I cannot raise my proficiency rates. They've always been anywhere from 30 to 35% in the area of reading and in math. So last year, in the creation of my school improvement goals, we had to target that. We had to put a microscopic target on our students, looking at their data, but also continue with the learning gain data. So we have 2 specific school improvement goals. The goal 1 states, if teachers can create and implement an effective learner environment that's engaging and aligned to learner needs, then 80% of the 5th graders scoring a level 2 on the 18-19 FSA in reading and in math will increase their score to at least a level 3 on the 2021 FSA in both reading and math. Currently, we have 22 5th graders that scored a level 2 in reading 2 years ago and 18 that scored a level 2 in math. Every one of these students have been identified. The teachers know who they are. The students know what they're working towards. They already know what they're working towards. The other goal is that learning gain goal. And we need to basically really look at our lowest quartile of students and make sure that those students are increasing their, gaining the points that they need to make a learning gain. Our goal in reading is to increase from 58% to 63%. I was proud of that 58%. It's not as high as I want it. I want 100%, but we want to push that. And in the area of math by 10 percentage points from 35 to 45. So some of the things that we do, all of our teachers with students eligible to make learning gains have the spreadsheet of their class. They know who's in the lowest quartile in their classroom, and they know how many points the students need right now already. Students know it. We also are focusing on these identified students because that's also going to help increase needed targets for specific subgroups on our school improvement plan, okay? So some of the things that we've been doing all year include, in order to support these goals, include over the summer, I had members of my school level leadership team, teacher members, come in and do some planning, all focused around learner engagement. We've been focusing on learner engagement. And these teachers created 30-minute professional development sessions, 16 different sessions that they present to the rest of the staff, every other faculty focus. So it's coming from their peers. Just like we talk about when students do the teaching, they learn faster. So I'm getting my teachers to do the teaching and they're learning faster. And it's really, some of my other teachers are wanting in on it. They want to present. So the more I can do that, the better. That's been very successful. We've had 5 out of 16 of those planned sessions already occur. We also, you've heard many of the same strategies, but we have weekly data meetings that are led mostly by me, but also my APs, every single week, focusing on different areas. All of our grade levels participate in the collaborative planning process with our coaches and administrators 2 days a week, like you've heard, with a focus for us. Our focus in our collaborative planning is looking at the gradual release model for our teachers, providing instruction to students, but then also on formative assessment, specifically those checks for understanding that the teachers are trying to make sure are aligned to what they're teaching as well as that learning goal for the day. But then what do you do with the data when you're done? How do you use it? So we're really working on that in the moment remediation. We do that check for understanding. We see that these 5 students need extra help. I'm calling you back while the rest of you practice this standard. And it's actually working well. I observed a beautiful lesson just yesterday with a 2nd grade teacher, and it was phenomenal what I saw her do. Next, not just putting all the focus on our teachers, but also having some student accountability in there as well. Our students in 2nd through 5th grade all have data folders where they are required to record their iReady data as well as their Lexile gains. We utilize Achieve 3000 so students know what their Lexile reading levels are, and it's our goal that they pass 4 different activities each month, because that's how you're increasing that reading. So still pushing that reading. The other thing is our teachers are between the student data folders and the data spreadsheets that those teachers have, they're holding bi-monthly data chats with the students so that they're continually talking with the students about their data. And again, the students know where they're at. So now when you look at our QSMA data, you can see from our cohort data, I mean, I was very pleased actually to see that we did not have major decreases from the beginning of last year. But our data, as you can see, is still well below the district, and we are continuing to work on that a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time through our teachers and our students. But again, I'm pleased to see those increases in our 4th to 5th grade cohort, and specifically that 3rd to 4th grade cohort. My biggest concern right now in just watching students is my 4th grade cohort. So seeing that math was kind of like, that's that little nugget that I can use for them to say, look at how well you're doing, because they need to hear that. They need to hear that. So since this data and we've done that, the following are things we've already done. So we've had 2 specific data meetings around this data where the teachers reviewed their averages in comparison with the district, as well as like schools, all of us, and then with each other. Then they disaggregated the data using the test itself to determine areas for review and remediation. How can I provide review and remediation to my students now that I'm in quarter 2? I'm still teaching quarter 2 standards, but I've got to remediate quarter 1. We utilized the iReady representative to really work with our teachers in one of those data meetings on looking at the resources that iReady has to provide to bring in small group remediation, not just the computer-based stuff, but the small group resources that iReady offers. We've also had a modeling session with Chris Lyon. Last Friday we did this, where she came in to each grade level, 3rd through 5th, and actually modeled with the classroom their actual math data. I'm sorry, I keep fogging up. Their actual math data and with the students. But basically, she let the students know, I'm not here teaching you, I'm teaching your teachers to get better. And really gave them some great strategies for reviewing specific questions that could be remediated. Because a lot of times our kids, it's not that they don't know the content, sometimes they don't know how to answer the question. Oh, I'm supposed to answer 3 bubbles, 3 things. So just going over that with the teachers and letting them see that. 21st century. So we've got 21st century up and running. We have 51 students in 3rd through 5th grade that attend our after school 21st century program. So we're utilizing that tutoring time, identifying specific students that maybe struggled in those quarter 1 or are our level 2 students to provide extra tutoring time for them during their first hour of their tutoring block. And then in that second hour, they're doing STEM-based, project-based activities. Yesterday was the first day that we opened up our online session. We have a teacher willing to do online 21st century with students, and so that started yesterday. We didn't have a huge amount, but we're constantly trying to increase that. And finally, we were able to get tutoring running on Tuesdays and Thursdays for specific 5th graders, and we just want to continue to build that with other teachers that are willing to tutor. So just continuing to build that. The only thing I can say is I love these kids, and they know I love them, and they know I believe in them. I'm going off script now, but I really believe in them. We have a huge I believe wall in our courtyard that we just put up this year because our focus has been there's nothing you can't do. And the students have all, in 2nd through 5th, created an I believe statement for themselves, and they're putting that on that wall so that when they walk by that wall, they know we believe in them and they believe in themselves. So there are great things happening at Emerald Shores, and I'm just very pleased to continue to be the principal there. Thank you.
Houston, how many students do you have at Emerald Shores?
We are at, I believe, 611 or 615, which I will say 5 years ago we were at 420 students.
Right.
How many are online?
Yeah, how many are online?
So right now, I can't give you the exact number only because I literally just got back. I think 11 today came back, and I have another 7 scheduled to come back on Monday because I've been doing those calls personally myself with the students that are failing and saying it's not working, we've got to get them back, we've got to get them back. But I'm on average right now at about 120, still too many. I was really surprised with my numbers at the beginning of the school year that wanted online. We've also though put many of those students that if the parent gave me a really solid reason, you know, my child has asthma, I put them on a contract, and I said, I've got to see changes. So they've all been put on contracts. I've written 17 contracts right now for the parents that really were not ready to bring them back yet.
Thank you. Her enthusiasm, she has these pep rallies when the data comes out that are amazing. So if you ever want to really see the kids get fired up about their data, you need to go to Miss Houston's pep
Well, but we can't have
them right now.
But guess what we are doing? Tomorrow we're actually having award ceremony / pep rallies in the individual classrooms to celebrate quarter 1 successes. So myself and my 2 APs are going into all of the classrooms tomorrow and basically doing a mini class pep rally / award ceremony.
I was about to say, why can't you do a traveling pet rally?
Well, that's kind of what we're doing. That's why we've got noisemakers and the cowbells.
Please don't Facebook. Please don't put out.
Oh, I know.
But yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Houston, for everything that you're doing. And it's a recurring theme, you know, hearing from each principal so far, things you're doing to involve students in their own learning and demystifying and personalizing the process. And that really makes my heart sing, because so many, especially kids with IEPs, have no idea why they even have an IEP. And mind you, if they do know, they're misinformed. No, you don't have a slow learning disability. You have a specific learning disability. And just something that simple to explain it to them can do wonders for their own belief and their ability to learn. So thank you.
I agree. Those conversations are a huge part of what has helped us through the years. You know, go from turnaround to a C school. We started those data chats 5 years ago when I started there, and they are very, very important. They have to be part of that process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Ashley Kemp is the principal at Evergreen Elementary that we'll hear from next.
Good morning. Looking at Evergreen's data, I'm going to call your attention to our 4th and 5th grade cohort, especially 5th grade. But first, I'm excited to announce that Evergreen has improved their 4th and 5th grade cohorts in 5 of the 6 areas. In English Language Arts, we saw an increase of 5% in our 4th grade cohort and 4% in our 5th grade cohort. But digging a little deeper into that 5th grade cohort, our face-to-face students are at 60%, which is in line with the district average. And looking at science, we saw a slight increase in our 4th grade cohort and a significant increase in our 5th grade cohort of 10%, making us just 1.1% below the district average. And looking at mathematics, we saw an increase of 8% in our 5th grade cohort. And when you dig a little deeper into our face-to-face students, again, they are only 2% behind the district average for their face-to-face students. I point out our face-to-face 5th grade students versus our virtual because at this time we had 14 of our 33 students online. Now I'm proud to announce that as of yesterday, we only have 5 of our 5th grade students that are online who are successful with online instruction. And looking at this, something else that Evergreen did during testing was all of our students tested face-to-face. So I do have accurate data to know what the students were doing, and also it was a great opportunity for us to show the students that this is a safe place, it's a great place, and we had many students return after testing face-to-face. Moving forward, some more areas of growth continue to be our 3rd grade group of students in English Language Arts and Math, as well as our 4th grade students in the area of mathematics. So what are we doing about this? Evergreen is very unique in the way that we are extremely small, so we don't have a bottom quartile. So when you're talking about our students need to be on grade level, that's a fact for Evergreen Elementary. All means all, and 300 of our 500 points for our school grade will come from students who are on grade level. So how are we going to support this? Is continuing through collaboration, classroom supports, and professional learning. During Q1, we had collaboration 3 times a week. We focused mostly on the standard and what the students were going to be doing, breaking it apart, what they need to know and do. Moving into Q2, there's a need for how are we going to teach it and how are we going to engage them, especially during this time of COVID. So during collaboration, we now come with more preloaded so that we're able to say, okay, this is what we're using, but how are we going to engage our students in that activity? Our content area specialists were already assigned to teachers during Q1. However, they were assigned based on teacher need, based on first year, beginning of the year, based on procedural type things. Whereas Q2, our content area specialists have been adjusted to support our student needs based on data. So you can see from the data, our need is in 3rd and 4th grade. So looking at our reading and math content area specialists, while they will still continue to support collaboration along with my administrative team, they are also spending 3 to 4 days in our, if you are our reading content area specialist, they are spending 3 to 4 days in our reading classrooms. Our math content area specialist is doing the same thing in our math classrooms 3 to 4 times a week, working with and supporting those students and teachers based on need. Our science coach is working with 3rd, 4th, and 5th for Q2. During Q1, she worked with all of our teachers, but primarily 5th grade. You can see 5th grade's data as they've made significant gains in science. So what we've done is adjusted her schedule to be able to be in all of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade science classrooms. And in those classrooms, she's in there for 3 to 4 times a week for the entire block. She also plans with them for their lessons and makes sure to have conversation around those, especially those tested standards when they get to 5th grade. For professional learning, on the teacher and service day, we were able to walk our teachers through the rigor and relevance framework and actually take their lesson plans for that next week and incorporate higher level questioning, which we know will help get our students to being able to perform on grade level. During our next 20 days, we're going to continue to focus on higher level questioning during our weekly faculty meetings and during collaboration. And looking at our data, I continue to be very proud of the work that our students, our teachers, and our staff put in every single day at Evergreen Elementary, and that we are currently at only 11% of our students online.
Which is how many?
It is 28. We have 250 enrolled today, which I will say on the very first day of school, we had less than 100 students face-to-face on campus.
Wow.
So we have now 222 students face-to-face on campus. So I'm excited to share that.
28 still online?
I'm sorry?
And 28 still online?
28, yes, sir.
What grade makeup of
We have 1 in kindergarten, 4 in first, 4 in second. We have 5 in third, 9 in fourth, and 5 in fifth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Kemp.
Thank you. And speaking of the online, that scattered number of students across grade levels is going to be challenging as the numbers of students hopefully continue to come back to brick and mortar, because certainly every grade level deserves the attention of an expert teacher. And I know from experience those K-5 self-contained classrooms were never very effective.
You're going to hear from area directors after the principals, and we're going to be addressing that and that need.
I'm looking, and I asked that number for Ms. Kemp specifically because she relatively has a small group of kids on the online, and it has to be painstaking to try to hold together these classes for such a small number of kids and creating in your scheduling. So I commend you on that, and I'm hoping that the rest of them will come back as well.
I have to give credit to my teachers in fourth and fifth. They're running a middle school schedule, so they actually teach 2 face-to-face and a virtual. And I've been fortunate to be able to keep a second and third, and then our team picks up K1 to meet the needs of our students. It's all hands on deck, but it is very difficult at a small school to maintain that.
And by all hands on deck, I know you've actually been teaching as well.
I have learned all about reading, teaching kindergarten and first grade. It's quite the experience. If you haven't done it, I recommend you try it.
Yeah.
Let me say something before we get to the rest of the principals. This is to every principal in this room and every principal that's listening, because you do know your colleagues are listening today. I want to commend y'all, really, because I pass by the schools after school is out. I see y'all cars are still at the school. I know some of you guys are working 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night just to make sure that your kids get what they need. Nobody knows about that part of what you do. They just think you show up in the morning time and work the car line, and that you go in your office and hide the rest of the day. You guys are workers, and I want to commend all of you and thank y'all for the job that you do as principals. Some people just don't know, really don't know. But I tell you, I ride by every one of your schools, even where I have to drive by snakes. I do drive by, and I see the work that you guys are doing, so thank you.
Yeah.
Truly, I thank you for that.
Well, I was thinking, actually, Ms. Kemp, when I popped in one day, you were actually teaching a math lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go in there for a minute, and she was up there just teaching away and modeling, and that's...
And that just goes to say, real leaders lead from the front, not the back. So,
Don't ask your staff to do anything you wouldn't do yourself.
right.
Yeah, nope, she was up there doing it.
Right, and honestly, that's how we've problem solved a lot for our teachers that were teaching online, is by our administrators' boots on the ground. I mean, they were literally doing it themselves, so we've problem solved a lot in transformation. All right, thank you very much. At this time, we'll have Pheasant Elementary, Greenway Elementary, and Oak Crest Elementary come to the table. We will hear from Miss Lacey Redd, principal at Pheasant Elementary at this time.
Good morning from Fessenden Elementary. We are very proud of the improvements we have made. The strength at Fessenden Elementary is that in all subjects we are performing within 5 percentage points of the district average. and that is with students online performing lower than our traditional students. Our bright spot is third grade ELA is equal to the district average, and this group has 75% meeting fall fluency measures. I am very excited to watch this group who has had a stable, quality primary experience, which we all know is critical. I believe they will be an indication of more proficient readers in our future. You may recall that Fessenden only had 26% of students proficient in reading back in 2017, and we were an F school. So reading proficiency is our #1 goal, and I am very proud that we have moved the school to a C grade through very high gain performance and higher than state average lower quartile gains. Our partnership with the University of Florida Literacy Initiative is helping support our K-2 reading foundation work. We will also begin reading tutoring for 2nd and 3rd grade struggling readers in November. Our science is also to be celebrated with our 5th grade traditional kids matching the district average. Our science scores have risen dramatically from 3 years ago. Even though we are not sharing behavior data, I could not help but feel pride when I reviewed the quarter behavior data. Teachers have written 59 positive referrals and only 17 behavior referrals. Our staff have built a positive, healthy, supportive environment for our students and staff. A strong, happy, stable staff is one of the keys to school success, and we are seeing it at Fessenden. We started this year with no teacher vacancies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that deserves a round of applause. Y'all may recall my first year, I started with 8 vacancies to start the school year.
And we wondered why it was an F school back in those days. You know, we had no teachers in the classrooms.
Our growth area would be mathematics. We dropped 5% in our cohorts, but we also see the biggest gap between online students and traditional students' performance. You remove the online performance and we are 3 to 5% from the district average. We began weekly math tutoring on October 13th with our TESSA grant. We track closely our lower quartile students with each having an individual plan, and we hold individual conferences with students to set gain goals. Our 5th grade is departmentalized, and my math coach and I work closely with our math teacher. We have also hired additional para support with our school improvement grant to better meet the needs in the upper grades. My math coach is holding regular training sessions with our paras, teaching them math vocabulary, strategies, and techniques to support our classrooms. Our students with English as a second language data trends the last 3 years have not been trending up. So we are working with our district ESOL department and requesting training for our ESOL paras. Lastly, we are concerned that we have online students not being successful and are working to bring those back in. Those that remain on MCPS online will be closely monitored and supported. Our popular Saturday school is in the planning phase, and we will work to support 3rd, 4th, and 5th on basic skills, test-taking strategies, and working with parents on how they can support students at home. We are energized and very hopeful you will continue to see growth at Fessenden in the future, and I am blessed to be their leader. We have a strategic quality plan to address students' needs. Thank you for the board's, Dr. Gullett, and Mrs. Kynard, my area directors, encouragement and support.
All right.
How many kids online?
We have, I think, 70 right now online.
And how many?
Down
kids?
from 120.
How many kids in the school?
370, 60, 300. It's changing by the day as well.
And you're pretty maxed out too, right?
Yes, I'm at capacity. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Miss Red is like the ultimate data watcher. And when I popped in there, there's these charts and and so I know you're on top of what's going on in your class, your school.
I'm very
and everybody, and not just you, but everybody is. Because if I could walk in and be like and see it, then that tells me that everybody in your school knows exactly what's happening.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Red. At this time, we'll hear from Dr. Jamie North, principal at Greenway Elementary.
Okay, well, good morning from Greenway Elementary. We are an energy bus school, so I am going to bring you the positive things that Greenway is doing. We have a lot of great things happening out at Greenway, and I don't know if you have recently heard about our new reading initiative vending machine that we have, but it is accessible to all the students, and it was covered by Channel 2 News. And we're very proud of this new initiative. because my passion since I've been there for 4 years is to make sure that all students are at reading proficiency levels. So with that in mind, I'd like to look at the data. I'm very optimistic with where we are starting the school year right now. Based on our Q1 data, strength areas for Greenway are our 3rd through 5th grade cohorts in reading. Our 5th grade students had a 3-point increase in reading from the previous year, which is also 1 point off from the district average for the current year. Our 3rd grade students are above the district average by 2 points in reading, and 4th grade cohort is above the district average by 1 point. So strategically, I want to kind of talk about the 5th grade cohort because we did something a little bit different over the summer, and we met as a leadership team and we talked about the 5th grade cohort is going to be very important coming up for the new year. Those students in 4th grade, we watched them. They were making gains, significant gains, and we did not want to lose the gains that we were experiencing with those students. So we talked as administrators and said, hey, let's loop this 4th grade teachers, all of the teachers up with these students to 5th grade. And that took some talking to, because you don't just go up to teachers and say, hey, by the way, you're all going to 5th grade. That's not my style. So it was important that I had their buy-in, but this was something that they could want and commit to. And we had a conference. First, I let them have a conference and talk it out. And then I said, hey, let's all Zoom in, because this was during the time, of COVID, so we were all Zooming. And so we all Zoomed in, and I wanted to hear their thoughts. I said, be transparent with me. Tell me, what do you think about this? And we put it all out there. But there wasn't, at one point, they didn't say the decision that we make is what's best for kids. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to hear that, because I knew what was best for those kids was to stay with that group who knew them better than anybody else. And we didn't have to start over at the beginning of this year with that group of students. We didn't have to start over and find out what their deficits are. We already knew what they were. So we're off the ground running with them already. So I'm very proud of my 5th grade teachers. I'm very proud of my 5th grade students. And I know that this is just the beginning of the greatness that you'll see at Greenway. We do have areas where we need to improve. Math is definitely an area of focus for us, but I think we're consistently hearing that across the board from everybody. So that's what I love about this group that we are with, is that we have common issues within our schools that we can collaborate and talk about and bounce off ideas. These are brilliant principals, and it's exciting to have a group where we can share, hey, what task alignment are you seeing in your schools? Hey, can I come walk your classrooms? And that's, again, what we're doing in our principal meetings, is getting in these classrooms so that we can see from a different angle. So we know that that's definitely an area of focus, and we are, again, looking at how are we teaching math? Do the teachers understand the standards enough to break apart the standard and then align those task activities to the correct standard that they are teaching at that time? And that is an area where, during collaboration, they have to talk about what task are the students doing, what are the students working on. And so that's very important, that during the collaboration time, we have our coaches, administrators, everybody's in there having those conversations about what are the students doing. And that's where we want to continue to focus our communication about that. Overall, again, we are optimistic with our current data with respect to not experiencing the significant drop that we thought we were going to see from March and throughout the summer. And we will continue to focus our Tier 1 instruction, making sure that it's rigorous and that our teachers are aligning, again, those tasks to the standard. I am proud of the students and their commitment and eagerness to learn this year. As an energy bus school, we maintain a positive learning environment where students want to be at school and they want to be on the bus. So go Gators.
Shameless plug.
Making me laugh, actually.
It just happened to slip as I did that.
I was like, it was perfect, and I was
It's
like.
lined up perfect, yeah. Yeah, I was sitting there thinking the same thing.
Kinda funny.
Good distraction.
It, like, moves.
I got a question. That's, and Ms. King and I shared. It's a good idea with moving the teachers with that grade level. Do you see that going forward, doing that same thing in the future? Because I think it took, when I was thinking about that, that took away that getting to know each other period at the beginning of the year, so they can come right back to school and jump right back in. We already know where these kids are. Let's hit their weaknesses and build on top of those topics.
Yes, sir, and that was the biggest part of the conversation that the teachers were having was this can be an advantage. This is our time to really capitalize on their deficits and fix them quicker. And just knowing those students and having those relationships means so much. And that is, you have to come out and see my 5th grade group, guys. Like, the kids, the teachers, it's like one happy family.
How did the parents?
They're amazing.
How did the parents feel about that?
They loved it. Absolutely
because
loved
they
it.
knew the teacher from the prior year.
And I actually I've had a couple kids who have had one particular teacher that was 3rd, then I moved her to 4th, begged her. She said, okay, and now she's in 5th. So she's had that kid for 3 years. It's been awesome.
Good.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way they always did with the gifted kids in the middle schools. You had, she was their teacher in 7th, 8th, and 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and she kind of, it worked for them.
Yeah.
It worked for them.
When I was a teacher, I looped 3 years with my kids because I just loved them so much, and we had such a tight bond, and so I just went with them and saw them out. So it still works today.
So you graduated with those kids.
Yes.
Yeah. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. North.
How many kids online?
Oh, sorry, online. I am just like everybody else. I am right under 100 online. I have about 564 back on campus, which is under. For us, we usually are right under 700. We are making those phone calls. We are getting some resistance to those phone calls because of the fact that they don't want their kids back on campus for whatever reasons it is. And, as a parent and an educator, I get it, but I have to take off the parent hat for a minute and put the educator hat on and remind them your child's academic success it's not there. It's not online. And I want them to be successful. So we have to have those conversations with those parents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. North. At this time, we'll hear from Ms. Kathy Bayless, principal at Oak Crest Elementary.
Good morning from Oak Crest. I'm really happy to be here this morning to share Oak Crest Q1 data with you. When I look at the slide in front of you today, it's more than just numbers to me. These numbers represent dedicated employees who fearlessly work to teach our students and provide a safe learning environment for them. And I also see students who came to school ready to learn on the first day of school this year. I see families who believe in our vision of creating a high-performing school and who have entrusted their children with us. I'm happy to report that Oak Crest 4th grade ELA data is just 4 points behind the district average. These same 4th graders in math are 2 points behind the district average, and these 4th graders are 3 points behind the district average. This current 4th grade cohort has historically been a higher achieving group of students at Oak Crest. Our Q1 data also shows that the majority of our MCPS online students are struggling, and we have encouraged the majority of them to return to face-to-face learning. Currently, we have 32 students enrolled in MCPS online. learning. And out of these 32 students, 14 have been asked to return to brick and mortar instruction due to low grades, poor attendance, or technology issues. So based on this data, well, even prior to this data, being a turnaround school, we know the rules of engagement, and we also looped our 4th grade students up with their teachers to 5th grade. Not only did those teachers have a really good last quarter of last school year with these students because they had bonded so much with them, they stayed in contact all summer long. And on the first day of school, because these students knew and loved their teachers, they returned to the building day one, ready to learn. So it's been a really good start of the school year for them. We've also made additional adjustments based on this data. We have streamlined our collaborative planning process with the help of the Bureau of School Improvement, where we were really detailed out what are your roles and responsibility for before, during, and after planning, not only for the teachers, but for our external operator, for our academic coaches. I have responsibilities. One of my AP's responsibilities with planning. So we're all in with planning and supporting our teachers. Also, every person on my admin team and a content area specialist, we have assigned ourselves to 2 grade levels, so minus kindergarten and 5th. And we work with our teams not only we are right there in the trenches planning with them collaboratively 3 days a week, but we're also in the classrooms as much as possible. So not only are we planning it, but we want to be there in the delivery of it, so that we can help, we can coach, we can provide immediate feedback. We know what we're looking for when we're in the room. And it has been a really positive partnership, because I'm like, that part there we planned, it didn't work as well as we thought it might. And we're just immediately getting together and making quick adjustments, and so it's fixed by the next day. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun for me because I am a teacher at heart, and I love that. To increase proficiency in reading, we've also spent a lot of time on vocabulary and fluency, and making sure that both of those are included with fidelity during the reading block every day. Our reading interventions are monitored very closely with weekly, we miss things, sometimes we fail, but we never miss our fidelity walkthroughs with our reading intervention. And we are constantly looking at data for these students. If they're excelling, we move them up. If they're struggling, we look to find out what's happening. Is this not the right intervention for them? And we immediately fix the problem. We are in the process of setting up evening and weekend tutoring opportunities at the Deer Run Community Center, as well as before school tutoring at Oak Crest. And also in 5th grade, my 5th grade students are working with my science lab teacher, Lisa Dorsey. She comes in and she provides science instruction to all of my 5th grade students every single day. And this has been very well received by our students. They leave that science lab very eager to share with others what they have learned on that day, and they're very excited about it. In 5th grade, we have departmentalized for the 2nd quarter, so our content area experts can teach our students. And we have 2 adults in every 5th grade classroom at all times, because we do realize that's, the majority of our points are in 5th grade. The administrative staff, just like almost every other school, we do have data chats with our students. It's kind of special this year because last year I had to have a data chat and then I left. Now I have a data chat and I'm living in those rooms. So I am constantly having conversations with students on what they're doing, their progress. And now when I walk by them in the hallway, they're just, hey, good morning, but they're also giving me, good morning, I made 80% on, so they're giving me a data. So it's really changing our culture of our school. Lastly, we know that increasing student achievement, our staff over the last year has really focused on unconditional love of our students, creating a very loving school environment where students feel safe, to take academic risks that are required for learning. But because we have created these safe learning environments, we are now turning to tough love so that we can see these students move academically by setting very high expectations and scaffolding instruction so these students will reach these goals. I know our students are primed. I know they are ready to perform, and I look forward to sharing their quarter 2 data with you.
That reminds me of a story the other day when I was out at Oak Crest. There was a teacher walking her line of little students. You know, they were transitioning somewhere, and she was throwing out these math facts, and the kids were answering as they walked. So even in transition, you know, but the kids looked like they were enjoying it. It wasn't just drill, 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 and it's such a fine line between challenging them and not just making it no fun. And every single principal so far just seems to be finding that balance of really high expectations without killing them. You know?
Right.
And just an extra, I have to say this to Principal Bayless and Principal Kemp, because you guys are in a different category. You guys have extra eyes on you. You have us looking at you, you have the community looking at you, you have Tallahassee looking at you, and then you have an external operator there on campus with you that's looking at you. So I commend you guys. You guys are in a tough situation, and I thank you for the job that you guys are doing every day, because sometimes I'm sure as principals, as instructors, as in teachers, you feel like you have all these handcuffs on you and you just want to let loose and teach. I'm talking to you too, Ms. Kemp. Slide. There you go. So I want you, I do want you to know, we do know what you guys are going through and what you're doing, and we appreciate the effort that you guys are putting into working on the culture and the students at those schools. So thanks.
Thank you. This time, we'll have Reddick Collier Elementary and Wyoming Park Elementary to wrap up our Transformation School updates for quarter 1. All right, we will hear from Ms. Chris Sandy, principal from Reddick Collier Elementary first.
Why, good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you the pride that is felt at Reddick Collier and all of its successes and how we are continually striving to improve. When you look at the data for Reddick Collier, you see numbers. I see a school, however, filled with children of vast learning differences, supported by a culture of family, community, and high expectations. Students come to Reddick Collier to learn, but they also come to eat, and they also come to gather all their hugs. So when the data indicates that Reddick Collier is within district averages, that is a celebration. I see a school that on a Friday afternoon, 2 weeks before we gave this QSMA assessment, that had 18 staff members sick out from campus, including 2 of the teachers that teach 5th grade. I also see a school that on that very same afternoon at 3 o'clock, we shut down 5th grade and sent them home for a COVID leave. Right. And yet, when they are within the district average, we have a celebration. I also see a school where learning is hard for kids. And being with us on campus for some is far more successful than being online. And we've talked about online. Our focus this past week is to bring back our 5th grade students, because we know how important that is to Reddick Collier. We'll see how successful we are. I also see a school that has work still to do. However, the data that you're looking at here does not tell the whole story. For example, closing our school last spring did have an impact on our 4th grade. Currently, they were third graders at the time. Currently, we have 69 of those students re-enrolled back at Reddick in fourth grade. 40 of them are sitting in classrooms and 29 of them are still online. Of the 69 students last spring, 37 of them were working on a portfolio. We were concerned about their FSA level, so we had begun a portfolio to help them. And also of the 69, 12 of those students had already been retained in third grade, but they never got to finish their reading proficiency because school was shut down in March. So when we score within 6 points of the district, we were celebrating. Because what they showed us was they may have been on leave, but they were continuing to learn. So what was interesting to us is that of the 69 students and those that did return to campus, those have become our struggling readers, or were our struggling readers. What's amazing to us, those that are online seem to be our more proficient readers. So we must be doing something well with those students online because they are making gains. As the data also does not highlight our first quarter attendance, there were days when the rate of our students in seats was the lowest in the district. Staying with our fourth grade students, I would walk classrooms and see that they had the poorest attendance. There were days when a fourth of the students were at home and were not at school. Why, you may ask? Well, we had a fair number of students with COVID, we had parents with COVID, we had grandparents with COVID, and then of course we had the fear that they were all going to get COVID. And so they stayed at home. That has impacted our attendance. However, now that our health is better, our attendance is better. And consequently, still scoring within 6 points of the district, we considered that a celebration. But are we satisfied with our performance? Oh no, we know that we must continue to show learning gains the second quarter. Just visit our campus and watch our 20-day action plan in place and see some of the wonderful things that we've got going on at Reddick. Teachers continue to collaborate weekly across grade levels with our leadership team, where we are looking at our reading and our math Tier 1 instruction. We also, within this week, will have hired our TESA intervention teacher and our TESA para, those are fundings from the state to support us, where they will begin next week supporting our Tier 2 and our Tier 3 students in both ELA and math interventions. Our goal is to continue to close the achievement gap with this high level of targeted support. We are supporting our math by implementing a serious, comprehensive math intervention piece of our daily instruction. In other words, we are putting in a math intervention. We have had a math intervention block, but we are ramping it up thanks to our TESA funds. And we will be sharing with our staff and our students a new kind of a piece called Do the Math, which is very much supportive of the standards and very much will assist students with a laser focus on those standards that they are having difficulty with. Our school obviously is beginning our after-school program, tutoring program, but we're trying something different this year. In looking at the past, we have seen those students that attend tutoring are those that ride in cars, car riders we call them. Well, we've learned from all of our travels these last couple of months that we have the tools available to us to assist those that ride the bus. And so we're trying something new. We'll see how well it works. We're going to be Zooming with those kids. Let them get home, let them get a snack, and then they can sign on with us. And we have teachers poised to help us begin our after-school tutoring program, but we're going to be doing it in the home with the support of families and with the students. We'll see how it works. So, When you look at Reddick, you see that it is focused on its achievement. 3 years ago, when Reddick was considered a failing school, it was easy to see that students were 2 years behind. However, when I look at these QSMA numbers today, yes, we're still behind, but no longer are we 2 years behind. We now, as you probably have heard me say, we are functioning about a year behind where we should be. But give us time, and we're going to continue to close that achievement gap so that every one of those cells will be at or above the district average. If the students were here today, they would understand what I mean when I say I can, I will, watch me. They would understand when I say, as students, we can be on grade level. As students, we will work hard to get on grade level. And oh, just watch me in action to get there. So.
I hate to, not hate to, but I just kind of, I've been looking at these numbers for all the schools. And Ms. Sandy, yours just kind of stood out with me. Mr. McGowan, I don't know if you caught this or not. When you look at these numbers, you look at the MCPS Online's 2020, 2021 numbers, each school, almost every school that's presented today, there are a couple grade levels that either met district average or exceeded the district goal. We need to look at those and find out what are they doing and why did they meet the district goal or exceed the district goal, because there's a real possibility that we're not going to be through at MCPS Online, and we need to know the things that are working and how did they do, what did they do to meet those goals. I'm looking at Miss Sandy's, she had two, fourth grade ELA and fourth grade science, and that's good things that we need to be looking at and building on those positive things. We can't just not go right by it and act like it's not there, because it's there. Those are shining spots.
And if I may add, I do believe that some of it has to do with, there's two things. Number one, our teachers really at Reddick have embraced online learning. And we have had many compliments from our parents because they're happy with what the teachers are doing. They're happy with the education their kids are getting. And they're very happy with their child's love of school, even though it's virtual.
Right.
And consequently, I think that that's step one. I think the teachers have embraced it and are teaching the classroom and online, because at Reddick you do 2 sections of face-to-face and you do 1 section of online. And consequently, the online teaching and learning is exactly the same of what you get with brick and mortar.
Right.
So there is not a discrepancy between the two. The variable is whether as a student you're doing your work or not.
Correct.
That's the variable.
Right.
It's being taught to you, you may not be learning it. So a compliment to the teachers for what they're doing.
Yes.
The other piece of this, our most gifted learner at Reddick Collier is online. She is a hoot. She has figured out how to put a copy, we finally figured it out, how to put a copy of herself in her seat so that you see her sitting there. And she is out doing a number of things. And so she has figured the game out. However, she said, her comment was, I was wondering how long it was going to take you to figure out that it wasn't really me.
We may need to hire her now.
Yeah. So the second thing we have found in some of our cases is the students that are returning are our struggling learners. The ones that are continuing to stay online are more, I'm going to use the word high-performing student. Those that seem to be embracing that concept and are ready to embrace that concept. They're more of an independent learner. They're more of a self-motivator. And so those are the classrooms where you see the students performing. They're going to learn in brick and mortar. They're going to learn online. And we also as a school have embraced, I have my media specialist sits in the media center, but she is teaching kids all over Marion County, meaning whether they're sitting in the 5th grade classroom, whether they're sitting online, wherever that child is sitting, she is teaching that block to those students. And they're engaged. So I think it's a case of who's doing it, what's being done, and the excitement that's being felt in the process.
How many kids are online, Ms. Sandy?
Well, we have 107 is what we keep saying, but they're returning. And so our goal, probably by the middle of next week to the end of next week with our challenging learners, we'll still be in the 50s to 60s by then, because those families seem to be happy with what's going on.
How many students in the school?
386, give or take a day or two. Our kindergarten enrollment still has been down. Well, let's start. Our VPK enrollment still never has maxed to 20. We still have a few seats available. Our kindergarten still has never maxed to where it should be. And interestingly, our third grade was not where it was projected to be either. So there are pockets, right, and yet you come to fourth grade and we're over projection. So if it hadn't been for kindergarten and third grade, we probably would have been over what our projected 425 would have been.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something, Miss Sandy. Probably the reason they're successful is because you tell them you can and you will.
You got it.
Because my grandmother always said, Mr. Kent never could do anything. And that's what I grew up with. And today I believe there's nothing I can't do, because Mr. Kent can't do anything, okay? And that's you. You're like my grandmother was. I tell you, I have.
She just aged you. She just aged you.
Thanks, Miss Stacy.
Philosophically. And I've known you for so many years. I've never known you not to improve wherever you go.
Thank you.
And it is just not in your DNA to have an excuse for failure. Love you.
Not at Reddick, we don't. There isn't time.
It's good.
There's just isn't.
The kids are they need us, and so consequently, it's our task to provide for them.
For educators all around, I hear reasons for failures, low socioeconomic, low this and that. I've never, in all these years I've known you, ever sharing an excuse for failure. There just isn't one in your world. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your vote of confidence, ma'am.
Yeah, well, when I think of Miss Sandy, because when I go to visit, Miss Sandy's no joke. She is no joke, but she means everything she says. You're there to learn, but she has that ability, but it's high expectations, but it's out of care and love for the children, and they know that. So it's like a very firm, like I said, you don't play with Miss Sandy. You can just tell you don't mess with you.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I don't know, depending, but that's what I think. And also the data, I can also walk into your school, and I can tell you exactly where it is, where you know, and your teachers know, and everyone knows exactly where they are and what they need to do. And you do a great job of doing that. And I always have felt like any teacher that gets to be under you, you're teaching them invaluable skills that is not just easy to get anywhere. So
Thank you, Ms. King.
You need to write a book.
Not today. Not this minute.
Eventually, when you retire,
I got work to do. I don't have time for that.
when you get to be 100 and you retire, you can write a book.
Oh, thanks. I'll work on it. Start taking notes.
Good way to recover, Miss Stacy. That was good recovery.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. And thank you, Ms. Sanders.
Wait, we need to give you your applause.
Be thanking you. So.
All right, well, thank you very much. And at this time, we're going to hear from, last but certainly not least,
No, ma'am.
Wyomina Park Elementary at the park, where I started my teaching career, Miss Joy Baxley.
I want to be like Miss Sandy when I grow up, and I want to be on a wall at Wyomina with Miss Kiner. Good morning. I am excited to go last today. Nothing comes after Wyomina except Wyoming. But anyway, I'd like to wrap up our transformation presentation with all green boxes and tie things up with a big green bow. 3.5 years ago, on July 31st, when I was told I was going as a first-time principal to Wyomina Park, and it was the only F school in the district, I didn't see it as a gift. But it has been a gift, and we have grown, and you'll see that in our data. Last year at this time, All of our Wyoming boxes were green, and they continue to show growth or maintain in every subject. And so that is a positive trajectory for us. And it means that consistency and constant growth are things that we consider our strengths. However, I'm aware that that growth is mostly by very small steps. So we cannot afford to rest on our laurels, but we must work on bigger gains towards proficiency, especially in the area of math with our fourth graders, as they lag most significantly behind the district. There's been a focus today on those online learners, and I am happy to report that we have been very intentional since August about getting them back, letting them come back whenever it was convenient for them, not when it was convenient for us. And based on last week, your permission to direct people to return based on their grades and attendance issues, we have had students return, and I'm pleased to say that right now 52 out of our 546 students, nope, 554. 52 out of 554 students are online, so I have 90.5% in the building and 9.5% online. And we love them all when they come back, and it's great to see them. We are working, as you've heard other schools say, on Tier 1 instruction through that weekly collaborative planning, always supported by an administrator and 2 content area specialists for math and reading. And we are looking at planning rigorous and relevant instruction for our students. We have been building those relationships since day one, and that's what foundationally makes it a success. We're committed to continuing to implement Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions with fidelity in order to close those skill gaps. We did have 2 classes, one in 5th grade and one in 2nd grade, teachers who looped with their students, and MCPS Online threw a little bit of a wrench in that because not all of the students were able to stay with those same teachers, but as they have returned, we have gathered the chickens up again and put them with their teacher from last year, and that makes the kids happy and the parents happy, and we're able to proceed with the learning. Our school improvement plan focus is on authentic literacy, which basically is letting students, we use the acronym STRAW, speak, think, read, and write in every class. When we plan for those activities, number one, we're planning for student engagement, because if you're speaking, thinking, reading, and writing, you are intellectually engaged and you are doing the work, and so you are doing the learning, and this is what we plan for all of our students to do. We have a plan also for every administrator and every content area specialist to be in every classroom every week, and that goes down without failure, and it allows us to provide that important feedback and coaching to our teachers in their areas of need. I'm also very intentional in the expenditure of Title I and TSSA grant funds to purchase a balance of people. Well, I shouldn't say it's a balance, because I purchase a lot of people and spend a lot of money on people and just a few little programs that don't cost very much money. But we have a CAS for every subject, an MTSS specialist, a Title I para, and an intervention para. And so with all those support people on our campus, again, we're able to support the teaching and learning process. In addition to district programs, we are using Reading Plus and Reflex Math to work on the basic reading fluency and math fluency for our students. That enables our teachers to pull students into small groups to work on those skill deficits that we know we have. There is a school-wide focus on vocabulary. You know that it's a district area of weakness, but it certainly, we own that one too. We're also weak in vocabulary, so we have purchased building vocabulary kits for each teacher to use with students every day to try and build their vocabulary, because we know that when vocabulary increases, comprehension increases, and when comprehension increases, proficiency increases. So we have a path to proficiency. We were recently awarded a Grants for Great Ideas funds to purchase kits for even all of our kindergarten classes. So it really is truly able to be a school-wide focus. Last year, well, I'll go before last year. The year before last, all of our subgroups at Wyoming Park were underperforming. Last year we were down to only 2, and it was our students with disabilities and our ELL students. Nope, not our ELL students, those are the new ones. It was our multiracial students. Interestingly enough, over the months of COVID, our demographics have shifted. All of the years that I've been at Wyoming Park, we have had almost an even ratio of African American students, Caucasian students, and Hispanic students, 32, 33, 34, around there. Right now, our African American population has increased to 43%. Our Caucasian population has remained stable, and we've reduced our Hispanic group by 10%, and we now only have about 15, but they have now become an underperforming subgroup. So we do have plans for our students with disabilities, our multiracial students, and our ELL students. We maximize our ELL pairs. We have 2, and they work with students using Imagine Learning as recommended by Title I, and that is something that students can access at school and at home to try and accelerate their language acquisition and help with proficiency. Of course, all of those students in those underperforming subgroups have a mentor on campus to try and provide that personal connection in addition to the teacher to support them and encourage them. Last but not least, we used grant funding to purchase a mental health counselor who consults through Ocala Crisis and Prevention. This was really not a purchase, it was an investment. Mr. Donnelly is at the park every day assisting us in supporting and providing services to our students who have experienced trauma and other mental health issues. We know that a healthy mind is foundational for all of our future successes. I'm proud of my team at Wyoming. I am proud to be the Warrior Chief, and every day is a great day at the park. We're not far. Come visit us anytime. Thank you.
This is a question for all of the principals. Good job. How are you guys dealing with classroom size since you have so many kids coming back?
Hybrid.
Hybrid, how was help me with that one.
At Reddick Collier, for example, we have students that were 2 weeks ago were online, and so the classroom was empty and the teachers were rotating into that room to teach. However, as of Monday, that room will have students in front of the teacher, and the teacher will still be teaching students online. So the teacher will be working
At the same time?
at the same time, yes.
They had to do that because
Right.
they're.
So, and I can address that.
Okay.
So, and Mr. Avery's in here as well, and we've had many conversations over it. It's certainly not ideal, right? It's certainly not ideal, and we all accept that. With the fact that we are, in some of our schools, Oakcrest, Waimea Park, Evergreen, we have many schools that are 93 and 94% students are in brick and mortar. Right? So that's very few students. You heard the principals give their numbers per grade level. 4 students, 6 students, 7 students. So exactly what you're asking, how do we deal with social distancing? Our teachers have been amazing. It is very difficult to teach both at the same time. However, they know that as a district, we are, and we're going to be, area directors are going to be sharing this with you right after this presentation, the need for something additional so that we do not have to have our teachers teaching both. Our teachers have been very committed because it is their students. Many times they're the same students that they were teaching. Now they've been converted from an online teacher to having some students in front of them that they already had online because they're coming back to brick and mortar. But we certainly are working. We'll be able to report on the plan that we would like to be able to go to.
Let me interrupt, Ms.
Sure, go ahead.
So you're saying that some of the kids that have came back from offline are in a classroom with the teacher, and they're still with the classroom, the class that they were with online?
In some cases, yes, sir.
And the reason I'm asking it, because this is my first time hearing this, we said initially that wasn't going to happen. I understand you got to do what you got to do, but this is my first time hearing this. I'm not sure about the other board members, but what kind of professional development do we give our teachers to facilitate teaching online, in person, and online at the same time? Because that was one of the issues that I heard from folk, that if you don't have the ability, everybody can't teach that format. Let me say that. everybody doesn't have the ability to teach that format. So what type of PD did we give to these type, and how did we assess these teachers were able to do that type of teaching?
So, go ahead. Would you like to?
So I've been dealing with- so I'll give you- Okay. So I'll give you a specific example. So in my 5th grade this year, we have 67 students. So at the beginning of the year, I had three units that all had about, and online had about 22 to 23, and the other ones did too. What happened was in those first couple of weeks, I probably had 10 to 15 kids that came back in the first 3 to 4 weeks from 5th grade. So what that meant was those 10 to 15 students, under the way we were doing it, had to go into those 2 face-to-face 5th grade classes that already had 22. So I was up to 27 in 2 5th grade classes. Obviously and there was a lot of issues that came with that. So what we had to do, actually the teacher came to me, my 5th grade teacher came to me after she had done it for a while and was like, look, I think it would be a lot easier, because there was 2 options at that point. We could either combine 4th and 5th grade and have an online teacher that taught all subjects for 4th and 5th grade, which is a tough ask.
Right.
All right. Or we could do the hybrid deal. But I mean, at that point, it really wasn't an option, kind of. My teacher was the one that came to me and was like, I think it would be a lot easier, because now that I've done this a while, if you give me, and this was just her now, I think there's other ways to do it, but she was like, if you give me a Chromebook for each one of these kids that's in person, then I can do really basically the same thing that I'm doing with the online kids. And it kind of, so basically they just kind of turn the screen a little bit, and I don't really have anybody because my numbers have gone down low enough now, but we basically have been working through that through the whole 9 weeks, because I mean, it got to the point, a safety issue with having 30, it would have been 30 kids, because I'm down to like 5 or 6 kids in 5th grade now that are online. So there's no way to support that, you know what I mean?
And I'm not knocking the ingenuity.
Yes, sir.
I'm not knocking the ingenuity or the creativity in coming up with that.
Right.
I'm just saying, we didn't know.
Well, okay. Sorry.
So
Was it brought up at their last meeting, though?
No.
So Chairman Cummings, members of the board, to be clear, this is not our model. We talked about this from the beginning. This is not something that we said was the ideal. This started with a couple of cases where teachers have requested this of their principals. And so principals are working closely with the union to work on a case-by-case basis. And so I think we have several here now, but it's a case-by-case. This is not our plan, and it's certainly temporary, but it was letting them do what they needed to do at the teacher's request and working with the union to support that. But you'll hear next about how do we move out of this, that not being an ideal model.
And it's supporting all of this. You mentioned the professional development. When this decision was made to go this way, we have been working with teachers during their collaborative planning time. I'm assuming my assistant principal today is in classrooms helping teachers. I've been helping teachers. They have been well supported, and it was all about the students. What we wanted to do to help students, because it was important that they did not have their learning interrupted. So the adults made the decision to help support the student, and that's what the model we've been working on. And so we are making a seamless transition, and it's a real compliment to the teachers and a real compliment to the thought of team. We're all in this together.
And let me say this for the record, I'm not against it. I just didn't know it. And I think it's an option that does need to be truthfully explored, but I also think that for that option to go forward, there has to be some real professional development. For every teacher is not equipped to teach online, and every teacher definitely would not be equipped to teach a hybrid type class. So.
Right, and we agree. And honestly, we have, especially in our smaller schools, which happen to be in our transformation area, we have many of our online programs that had already collapsed and have 2 grade levels that they're teaching online, K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. You'll see that in many of their schools already. And so as we weren't able to continue that, it would have had to have been, as you said, a K2 or a 3 to 5, which is horrible to ask a teacher to have to do that. That's where the school-based teams really, we worked on what other options we had that we could best meet the students' needs, knowing that we are coming to you today to talk to you about a different plan so that we don't have to continue to teach both at the same time.
Let's get to it. Thank y'all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break. Listen, all you principals, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We reconvene at 11:37 a.m. We will continue with our work session, administrative briefing and work session. Next up is Mr. Whitehouse, Student Transition and Interventions. Ms. Beck.
Morning, board members.
Morning.
Last time that we were here, we addressed the concern with a number of our students online struggling and talked about the need to start requiring some of those students to come back because they were not successful in that online setting. So we want to provide a quick update on where we are in terms of numbers of students that are returning and how we're providing support to those students at the elementary and secondary level as they return. So at the start of this 9 weeks, which just began last week, we welcomed back roughly 2,000 students to our schools in person, and that was students who had requested to come back at the start of this 9 weeks. So it was a good chunk of students that did return initially last week. Our principals, based on the guidance that we've given them for addressing students who are struggling in the online environment, have identified roughly another 1,700 students that they are working to bring back this quarter across all of our schools due to academic or attendance concerns. And we also have about 1,100 more that we have placed on academic contracts, which means that we are monitoring their progress. We've met with the parents to explain that we are concerned about their academics, but they're going to remain online while we monitor for improvement. And if we don't see those gains that we need for them academically, then we will at the end have to require them to come back. So currently, as we sat yesterday when we pulled the numbers, we had about 9,300 students online still this quarter as of yesterday, which was about 23% of our total student population, K-12 still online. Those numbers have shrunk even more today as we brought more students back yesterday, so it's a little bit closer to 22% today, but still a good number of our students remain in the MCPS online as a method of instruction. So with that return of students this quarter and also likely next semester, we know that there's going to be a number of scheduling challenges that we're going to address. And you heard briefly before some of that discussion around options for scheduling could be a hybrid model. It's definitely not our ideal approach, and currently we have very few teachers that we are using in a hybrid approach. The biggest challenge obviously is at our smallest schools, which our transformation schools tend to be the smallest schools in the district and have the fewest numbers of students online. At the larger elementary schools, we still have enough students online that we're able to do some creative scheduling within the schools, such as combining classes, and eventually what we're going to have to start looking at is more combining between schools as well as a scheduling solution. We have very few classes at the secondary level. In fact, the only classes that I've talked with principals about is really looking at some of our advanced level courses, like our IB courses, where we have very few students enrolled in those classes to begin with. And as those students start returning, and we're only left with 3 or 4 students in an IB class online, we can't justify an entire period, but we also don't want to remove that from their schedule as they need that class as part of their IB diploma graduation. And in those classrooms where we don't have to worry as much about behavioral concerns, a hybrid approach becomes a little bit more easily managed by a teacher because we really are just focused on academics at that time. So certainly not our ideal approach and not where we're going to move as a group going forward. And we'll talk a little bit more about second semester and the next topic about how we want to address some of that. The other challenge that we know is going to come with students returning is we recognize social distancing is going to be less possible on our school settings. We know that's a challenge. Many of our schools are at close to full capacity if all of their students are back. So providing true social distancing within a classroom setting becomes next to impossible. Providing true social distancing in the hallways obviously is already a challenge. So the key thing that we have to continue to focus on with our schools is making sure that our students and staff are wearing their face coverings at all times. And that is the CDC recommendation, that it's either social distancing or they wear a mask or face shield when it's not possible. And our students, for the vast majority of them, have been very good about wearing those face coverings at school. Even in our secondary schools, where I thought we would start to see some struggle, they've been great. As I walk campuses, occasional ones that you'll have to remind to keep their nose covered as well, but for the most part, they're doing a great job about keeping those on. And we know that that's going to be the best way for us to mitigate any future concerns as we continue bringing students back. We also know that we have to maintain our cleaning protocols that we have in place, and our custodians have done an amazing job and continue to getting around campus throughout the day to making sure our campuses remain clean. And also making sure, and this has been a very effective approach that we know the CDC recommend as well, is maintaining seating charts for all of our classrooms and limiting the number of students that our students interact with, continuing that cohort model approach in elementary schools as much as we can, and really making sure that our students are not moving all about the classroom, even at the secondary level, that we're staying within a group of students and we record that. And that's going to minimize any types of impact of contact tracing. So even though we know we're going to have more students, which will present challenges, we feel confident that if we follow those guidelines, that we can still have a successful school traditional operation. So with that transition, we're going to talk a little bit as well about some of the interventions and the ways that we're supporting our students on campus as they return. So I'm going to talk a little bit about secondary schools and what we do for interventions. Ms. Beck will address our elementary schools and how we're providing support for those students coming back. At the secondary level, all of our students at this point in time have been placed into an intensive reading or an intensive math class based on their prior performance. When we talk middle and high school students that are in those classes are typically several years behind academically. And so we've already had them placed. They're already receiving those interventions online. So as they return, they'll receive the same intervention in the in-person classroom setting for reading and for math. Our biggest impact that we're going to have on students as they return is getting the students into tutoring, which is something that we're working to get started at all of our secondary schools. We have received our Title I tutoring allocations to our schools, and we've been quickly approving plans to get those tutoring up and running before school, after school, and even some of our schools that don't have Title I, like Forest, offer during school tutoring options for their cap period. So we are trying to be very creative in making sure that we have tutoring solutions available for our students who are behind academically, even the ones that are already in person, but certainly the ones that are transitioning back that we know may not have received all of the needed skills that they need for the school year to make sure that they get into those remediation opportunities. The other way that we're providing support, obviously, is with classroom behavior support. As we increase the size of students within the classroom, we know that that can sometimes present behavior challenges, especially when students have not been in school since March. And so we are certainly making sure to work with our deans and our other support professionals on our campus to get into those classrooms where we start to see issues. But the best approach that we're taking right now in our schools is when we started the second 9 weeks, we essentially started the first day of school all over again. We had a full school reset in many of our schools where schedules were changed dramatically, and we focused that first day of the 9 weeks on welcoming students back, reviewing expectations, procedures, how we are responsible students on our campuses, and making sure that was a key focus so that those students could be reacclimated into the way of work of our school campuses. And we will continue to do that, likely again at the end of the first semester. We'll do it again when we return from winter break. The more opportunities that we can to remind and teach and coach our students on behavioral expectations and provide the supports as needed in the classroom when we see those needs arise, we will be able to make sure that our students have a successful transition back to our secondary schools.
All right, so good afternoon, or I think maybe it's a little bit of the morning left. I'm pleased today to talk to you a little bit about what we are doing in elementary schools. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is what are we doing as students are transitioning back from online learning to face-to-face. So we know that when some of those students transition back, they'll transition fine. They won't have had a deficit in Q1 standards. They will have participated and they'll assimilate very well into their face-to-face classroom. But that's for a select number of kids. We know that in reality there will be a fair share of students that we have gotten back in face-to-face, and we welcome them back and want them back face-to-face, but we understand that they're going to have deficiencies. So what are we going to do about that? One of the things that we've really begun the discussion about is accelerating unfinished learning. And what that is going to entail is reteach opportunities. And those reteach opportunities can occur whole in small group, and they can occur in a number of different ways. We use the word accelerate because for us, accelerate means that we're working to provide student success right now in the present, because that's where we're at. And we can't change what happened in the past. And so one of the ways you do that is you take your current standard skills and concepts and you pair them and make a very clear connection to previous learning. But that takes some work to do that. So if you're doing that through student activities, if you're doing that through mini lessons, that all has to be done very strategically. And so we want you to know that we have begun the process of working with teachers and specifically coaches on how that would look and how we can support them so that they can support the teachers in the classroom when these reteach opportunities come up. The other thing that would be important for us is I do want you to know that whether a student was face-to-face or online, that if they required intervention, that they have been receiving that. But we also know that as the students are transitioning back from online, that it would be important that we give them this an intervention screener again. We want to make sure that when we are placing them in for intervention support, it is the right intervention that's going to meet their reading deficit area. That's the important thing. So who would be the individuals that would do that? Many of our schools have literacy coaches, and we would ask them to do it. They're usually very short, very quick, but give terrific information. We do have some schools that do not have literacy coaches, and so in those cases, it can be their assistant principal or their designee, and this is not a new process for them. This is really the work that we do at the beginning of the year, and I like what Mr. Whitehouse said. It kind of goes back to, we do feel like we're doing a little bit of resetting with this new 9 weeks, and will probably happen throughout the year. The other thing, I know that you heard the transformation schools and Mr. Whitehouse say in secondary, and I'll reiterate in elementary schools, really leveraging our before and after school tutoring opportunities is going to be extremely important this year. Those are opportunities, again, to close down existing deficits with students and provide them some time beyond the school day. I think the other thing I'd like to talk to you about today is MTSS. I know I've come before you before as a board, and we've talked through that tier 1, everyone, tier 2, tier 3, and I've done presentations on intervention. But I want to talk to you about what that looks like right now, particularly in elementary schools, since that's what I can speak to. I have to be honest with you, it does look different this year. Just to kind of recap what it would have looked like in the past, we would have called it the walk the intervention model. And so what would happen is even at the end of the previous school year, we would have really been able to capture student deficits. We would have confirmed that at the beginning of the school year. Those students would be strategically placed in intervention groups, either within their classroom or potentially with another interventionist in another location. And so again, it's really getting to the root of where their deficit is, and we would call that a walk to intervention model. We are currently not doing that, and the primary reason we're not doing that is for student and staff safety, because we talked about it, we had conversation in great length. We felt like that was not keeping with the CDC recommendation of maintaining cohort groups, because under a walk to intervention model, particularly if you have the entire grade level going to intervention at one time, you have the ability that you could be working from students from all different classrooms. And so with that being said, we've had to be a little creative this year. And one of the ways that we're being creative is that intervention is housed within the classroom. And so in most classrooms, there's 2 to 3 interventions going on. Usually the teacher is leading one of those interventions. Another one of those interventions may be an electronic intervention. And if the school is fortunate that they have support personnel, paraprofessionals that can push in, then usually that support staff also can either be monitoring, assisting students, or also running an intervention group. And so I think what I would like you to know is that although this current model may not be the most ideal, our teachers and our administrators, and I think you heard that today, they're working very hard to make that happen and to make sure that even given everything going on with COVID, that we're navigating and doing what's best for students. So one of the things again, to kind of wrap up this section of MTSS and the fluidity of MTSS, I think one of the hallmarks that we stand on is that when the intervention is not working for the student or they are not responding by closing the gap, we have always been under that mantra of then something needs to change. So whether it is the program that needs to change, whether it is something about the learner, their motivation, their ability to do the intervention, whether it is the environment that they're in, something has to change. And we've talked at great length with administrators and coaches and with teachers that has always been our model. Again, things are a little different this year, and so we certainly are absolutely fine if adjustments are made, but those adjustments are occurring within the classroom because we are not doing the walk to intervention model. I think the other thing that I would say as a testament to our schools is that they are really using their support staff and their paraprofessionals very creatively. I have gone to schools and I have walked intervention, and we have different models going on. But again, I see them leveraging the resources and the people they have. But I do want to be very clear with you. It is a work in progress, and it does not look the way that it looked last year or even the year before that. And so I wouldn't be transparent if I was telling you anything different. So the last section I'd like to talk to you about is what support do we give to MTSS? I want you to know we give a lot, and it's very much ongoing. So we spent time during our 3 weeks of pre-planning, and we had intervention training going on for teachers and paraprofessionals. They could take as little of that training or as much as that training as they wanted to take. We took all of those trainings that we recorded virtually, and they are now on our elementary ed portal. We have a PD on demand. You can go there 24/7, and you can look at anything you want. The nice thing about this, and I think you'd agree with me, that things don't have relevancy until you actually have to be the one doing it. So when you first do a program, you're listening to it, but then when you get into it and you're thinking, I've hit a stumbling block, I need some clarification, going back to something that I can refer to a best practice, certainly would be helpful, and that was the whole intention about this PD on demand. We have already offered some MTSS office hours done virtually, specifically for online teachers, because we knew that was going to be a transition for online teachers. And they have been working with my program specialist, Jamie Brazington. She has been dedicated to MTSS. She can talk those interventions. She can model those interventions. She provides trainings. She works with coaches. And she gets in those classrooms and she models with teachers in front of students. She is always happy to do that. We have done a variety of trainings over the years with our administrators and coaches. And I think the other thing I would want you to know is that we have made sure that our schools have these resources, including for each one of we kind of look at reading as a stair step to success. And at each one of those stair step points, we have made sure this year that we have both a face-to-face intervention program and a resource that teachers can utilize virtually with online students. And that's what kind of brings you up to speed on what's going on with MTSS and supporting those online students at the elementary level.
I did, go ahead, Ms.
My question was, because you brought up Ms. Brazington, has that been communicated to the teachers that they have that wonderful resource for? That's what I was wondering. First thing I was like, do they know that?
I feel very confident that they do. 100% their principals are aware. Ms. Brazington is always at our coaches meeting and presents. Ms. Brazington is always the one that helps deliver those intervention trainings. And she also pretty consistently puts things in our teacher learning line. And so they kind of get to see her face and her work. That's a wonderful communication tool that we get to kind of have weekly interaction with our teachers.
Okay.
But they may not know that that's available to them.
Yeah, because when you said like she could, meet with them or go into their classroom or whatever, that's what I thought. It's like, is the communication there that they know they have that resource? So, but
I feel confident they do, but you know how they say you can never assume something, so I think a great idea would be reiterating that in our weekly learning line. We have over 1,000 individuals that look at our learning line weekly. I can monitor the analytics of that, and so I know that it is widely read at our schools, and we pride ourselves on putting good stuff in there, so that's an excellent suggestion, and I'll be happy to put that in there. Just, again, it never hurts to have a lifeline out there.
And I was listening to when Mr. Whitehouse was saying, you said that they have seating charts in the schools?
Yes, so that's...
Every school Every classroom has a seating chart?
They have since we.
Again, I couldn't say for sure because I haven't inspected them all, but that has been our request of all principals, and the principals know that to minimize the impact of contact tracing, those seating charts are critical, because that really allows us to identify for certain which students were within a 6-foot radius
Right.
of those students.
I was always hoping that that was one of the things that was mandatory in the classrooms, and that we had that seating chart somewhere, so that if it happened on the weekend, it was readily available to give to the health department so they can start making those contacts, because that's going to be the key to true contact tracing.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Yes, and in line with that, you were speaking, Mr. Whitehouse, about as the challenge, as more and more students come back, which is what we want, what the implications as far as social distancing and continuing to wear a face covering. And I also think about that on the bus, too. We have kids that take a very long bus ride twice a day, and it is really, really important to reiterate, and so I was glad to hear you say, because it would have been so much easier on the adults to just call it and say no other kids can come back until second quarter, but we knew that wasn't what was best for kids. But what it has created is a constant first day for teachers and principals, and because what the kids are returning to looks very different than what they left. And kids have got to understand, and I think it's so important to just be very strong in saying this. This is not the year, students, to be engaging in this he said, she said stuff and getting in trouble, over things that.
Stupid.
Yes, thank you. What I love to call junk behavior. We just don't have time for that. We never did. But to me now is a great time to just reinforce that. And the only information or concerns I'm really getting from parents is some of them are hesitant to send their kids back to school because they feel like the kids are in masks all day, every day with no break, and the more kids come back to school, social distancing won't really be possible. So face covering with fidelity is going to be even more important. Is there a way to communicate out to teachers and principals safe ways to take a mask break so that families can be reassured, that we're not going to be strapped in all day?
That's a good idea.
Yes, we can. I've seen some really good examples of that, especially at the secondary level. We have a lot of block scheduling, so we have extended periods. And so teachers are able to build in 5-10 minutes within that period where they can take students outside, let them spread out, take their mask off, relax for a few minutes, and then get back to work. So we can certainly make sure that those strategies are shared around.
That would be great, because just myself, once you sneeze in your mask, it's really gross, and you want to take it off and change it. And so those are the kinds of things, if we could address those details, we might see even more parents decide to send their kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very great, yeah.
Okay, thank you all.
What a team.
So while we are transitioning, I'll be staying up here. Ms. Kiner and Dr. Hembrook will be joining me so we can talk about second semester options for MCPS Online, because we know this is something that our parents want to know about, and we also want to make sure that we are making sound decisions. Yes, sir.
Hold on. Any public comment from the last one? Just want to do it right.
Absolutely.
And if I could, Chairman Cummings, members of the board, as the area directors begin to have this conversation, I want to tag back into what was shared earlier about exceptions to these challenges we're having with meeting the needs of all students. But our goal, first and foremost, is always what's best for students. So you'll hear some of that. But I also want to share with you as a board and publicly that we anticipate hearing some direction from the state this month. We were told that State Superintendent Group was told that the state is expected to give us some direction by Thanksgiving. What that will mean is perhaps what that would look like, what our requirements would be for instruction for the second semester. Additionally, we're anticipating some more information on what the funding would look like. And so those are both critical pieces. So what you will hear this morning, this afternoon officially, will be where we are headed, understanding that we are still waiting some very critical information.
And are the things that we're going to hear still taking into consideration the letter that the superintendent sent to Mr. Corcoran in regard to extending the, okay,
Correct. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you. So when we look at the second semester, there's really only two options that we can really ponder. One, which several districts have already taken the stance, would be completely eliminating the online program, requiring everybody to come back second semester face-to-face. The challenges that we know that presents is, one, we have students who have legitimate medical concerns based on their individual health or close family members that live with them's health, which would then eliminate that option for those students who are being successful in an online environment from receiving direct instruction. Their only option at that point would be Florida Virtual School or Marion Virtual School. The other challenge that we see, especially at the secondary level, is we have a lot of students who are in our advanced classes, our IB, our Cambridge classes, that are very successful online. And they also have health concerns. And if we shut down MCPS Online and divert them to Marion Virtual School, there is no Cambridge or IB curriculum available through Florida Virtual and Marion Virtual. They only offer advanced placements. So we would essentially be removing those students from their option to graduate with an IB or a Cambridge diploma if we shut those programs down. So the other option, of course, is maintaining MCPS Online for the second semester, pending directive from the state and obviously the funding available for us to continue that operation. We know that the challenges that are going to present with that is that we have much smaller numbers. You heard from our transformation schools that some of them have less than a handful per grade level that are still online. Even at some of our larger elementary schools and some of our smaller secondary schools, once we bring back these students that are not successful, we may have less than 100 students online, which will present, again, scheduling challenges for those schools and how we address that. So what we've already started doing this quarter and can certainly continue doing is looking at combinations of classes. Ideally, the way to make this continue in the second semester without having to move into large amounts of hybrid instruction is to look at combining schools, as we've done with some of our advanced courses and as we've done with some of our ESC self-contained classes, to make sure that we're providing high-quality academics available to those students so that they can remain online.
So, Mr. Whitehouse, I think that's a great idea. I think that's a very viable option. What I would ask that you do is look at those teachers that are incredibly successful online and not really give teachers that choice. I mean, when you look at, I think, was it Wyoming Park that we saw, or Reddick Collier, where they had 50, where their numbers were reversed, that teacher gets it. So I think we have to be very, very strategic about, I think combining schools and having an MCPS online school is a great option, as long as we have the right instructor. So some of them are so successful, that's who we need to look at.
Let me ask a question. I agree. Let me ask a question. With that, if you combine, you're combining the schools with the programs, correct? So how many IB programs do we have?
We have two currently,
Vanguard and who?
Lake Weir High School.
Lake Weir. So if you combine those two programs, for those kids that are seniors, are they still graduating from Lake Weir's IB program? Are they still graduating from Vanguard's?
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's combined into one online platform. So that's what I'm hearing, right?
So the way that we've done combining schools to this point is that you still remain a student at your base school.
Okay.
But what we do is we take the teacher from the other school who will be teaching that subject and we add them to the master schedule of that school. And so you're essentially dual enrolled, a dual entity scheduling between two schools. So you physically remain a Lake Weir student, even though your teacher may be a Vanguard High School teacher. And because we're in a virtual world, it's seamless.
Right.
There's no, physical transition. It's just simply signing from one team to the next team. So in that case, absolutely, we want our Lake Weir students to be able to graduate from Lake Weir High School, receiving the quality IB instruction so that they can pass the IB exam at the end of the year at Lake Weir High School.
And I say that, I throw that out there because I want, the public listens to what we're saying. They need to hear that we're saying that they'll still be a Lake Weir student or a Vanguard student in an IB program that's online, and their diploma is still going to say same thing.
Correct. So a lot of what's going to drive this conversation is we have to identify what the numbers are going to look like for the second semester, because I shared earlier the number that we're looking to bring back based on their academic performance, but we may have other students that also elect to rejoin us in the second semester just because it's a natural time for them to move back into our traditional schools. Right. So we're going to have to gather those numbers from our parents that are currently online to make sure that as we're making decisions for what the second semester will look like and what schools get combined together, that we have accurate data to go off of. And so that's going to be part of our process moving forward.
So we'll ask them that prior to that holiday break, so that when the teachers can, or.
So is it going to be like an online survey? How are we going to pull that data in?
So the ideal way would be to do it paper-based, only because not all of our parents have active email addresses that we have access to, and we also know that even some of our phone numbers are a struggle. So we would have to provide a very sound way to get that information out and collect it back to make sure we have the most accurate data available to us.
So a letter will go, a letter will go to those kids that are still out, those families who's still out, and they will have a deadline on when to get that back in. Basically, kind of like school choice, because that's going to be open at the same time, sound like.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and I just want to reiterate on behalf of the principals, they have been working, as you heard them speak today, with their problem-solving teams, and we know that the parent is a part of that team. For those students who have not been successful, as the Q1 data showed, maybe with attendance, D or F failing grades from online. So certainly those students have already been identified and have already been invited to come back to traditional learning, which again is why our numbers are increasing at the elementary side, currently having 81% of our students in elementary that are in traditional learning as of today. And we know that many of our schools are up to 93 and 94%, especially some of the smaller schools that you heard from today, like Oakcrest. And so the online option for second semester, those letters would be sent home to the parents of the students that are thriving and that are academically successful in that MCPS online learning platform.
Is there ever a point where we can mandate or mandatory a family to bring their kids back?
So we've taken that approach already based on the guidance that we received as we discussed this at the last work session, that we are.
How'd that go?
So in the most cases, it's been successful. I think the parents, once they realized how struggling their students were, because we don't have a lot of parents that sign into the parent portal on a regular basis. And so once we're able to really have those conversations and they can see just how much of a struggle it is for their students and how safe we've been in our schools. And I think that's another key indicator, is that we've been able to demonstrate that we have a very good track record right now of providing a safe learning environment for our students. And they're hearing that from their peers that are within our brick and mortar classrooms.
Right.
But what's the consequences to that? If they say, I'm still not.
Well, they have other choices.
Right, but again, when we go back to the emergency order, they still have other choices, but online is supposed to be an option.
Well, my understanding is for some of those, we have put them on a contract that I believe the parents and the students sign. And part of that is if they can't be successful, that they'll have to come back. So am I correct in that?
But does that line up with the original order that Secretary Corcoran gave us in the beginning? Does it violate, what I'm asking, does it violate any of that?
So Chairman Cummings, that's a great question. I had a conversation previously, and it's been several weeks. I contacted the state myself and said, for those students who are not thriving, they are not successful online, we tell them they need to come back. It's a placement. They come back to the building. Their other option still remains to do virtual school because we are still providing an option. But we have to do our due diligence to make sure that on behalf of the children that we are setting them up for success. And they did say that was appropriate because they still have the option of doing virtual school, the Marion e-learning or the virtual school.
I'm asking that
Correct.
just because I want to make sure that we don't, down the road, get some person that's going to sue the district because you took away a option that was stated that we had to have. That's why I'm asking
They still
that.
have an option. They can go to Marion virtual or Florida virtual. The executive order did not say.
It did not say MCPS online.
It
It
did
just
not
said
say, it
option.
said we had to have an
5-day-a-week option.
Correct.
And we still have options.
Just want to make sure that we're legally.
Yes, sir. Additionally, I described our student study team process of documenting and then communicating and working with the parents to communicate the nature of where they could improve through a contract. And so I explained all that, and I was told by the chancellor that that was appropriate.
And Reverend, since you said the word legally, I feel obligated to jump in here.
He woke right up.
Time to perk up and say something now.
I have been briefed on everything that we're talking about right here, right now, and I completely agree with what Dr. Gullett has just said. So,
all right.
When I think about the emergency order, for me, it seemed more about emphasizing that we had to have a 5-day-a-week in-person option, and which we certainly, do have. But I'm really glad that we're going deep on this, because we certainly don't want anything to come back to haunt us. And I will say, with parents that are friends of mine in other states that are trying to do kids coming to school 2 days a week and then other kids coming 2 days a week, it has been an absolute shambles and a nightmare.
Or they go 2 weeks and then they're totally shut down again.
Yes, and realizing that we don't know what the virus is going to do going forward. Everything, as you've always said, needs to remain flexible and fluid. I do have just a couple of thoughts about the technology side of this transition and bringing more kids back to school and then combining schools. And I think some of it we've already been able to successfully problem solve, like with Skyward, making sure that teachers can easily access the grade books and the students from those other schools and make that as user-friendly as possible. And I think some of that has already been solved, which is great. And then also, too, the software, I think it's the Nexus Lexis that we're trying to get going to be able to have access to the most recent contact information for families is also going to be a huge time saver and very, very important. So we'd love to get an update at some point where we are with that.
Can the IB program, can that be hybrid? If the numbers are weird, at the beginning of next school year, and say, I don't know, you mentioned Vanguard and Lake Weir, but say that there's a very low amount of students that are going to continue online and say they're coming back. Can they do the hybrid, or will they still only have to do it online with the one teacher?
So the hybrid is a choice that we could look at, provided the teacher is comfortable with it.
Okay, that's what I was.
You have to be very willing to take on that challenge. It's less of a challenge in an IB classroom, and I've actually seen it successfully done with a teacher of their own fruition opting to do it when students were quarantined, where they literally had a Chromebook sitting in the desk where the student would normally sit, and their peer that sat next to them basically helped them throughout the lesson to make sure that they knew what was going on. When they did labs, they brought the Chromebook over to lab with them, and the student got to interact with their lab group as they were doing the labs.
Yeah.
So it is definitely a possibility, but the teacher has to be willing to take on that additional challenge.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering about that.
That's why we have to have the best
Correct.
teachers that are.
Right, well, but sometimes, if a teacher, it could be the best in the classroom and online, and that, so I'm just thinking the what ifs, and that's why I was just curious about the IB specifically.
Have we looked at any type of professional development for supporting these teachers that will be teaching hybrid to make sure that they know how to flow between the two platforms at the same time? I mean, I think if we're going to be doing it, I think we need to give them that support that they need so that they can be fluid in it and seamless with it. Some are just gifted to do that, but I think we need to, as a district, we need to say this is available as far as training for you guys.
I agree, and I think part of that is going to be tapping into some of our teachers that are already successful at doing it to help lead some of that initiative, because this is a whole new way of work for everybody.
Right. And it's not going away.
Correct.
We can't predict if it's going to go away, so we might as well perfect it while we're doing it.
Yeah. And recognizing that there is a population of students and families that have really embraced the MCPS online model, which is totally different than Florida Virtual or Marion e-learning because it's synchronous. In my mind, that just opens us to another really good educational opportunity and option for kids going forward.
One of our choice options.
Exactly, COVID or not.
Right.
Exactly.
I would be for that, definitely.
That Vice Chair Throw, that's actually what we've talked about, is this is the opportunity, as we said from the very beginning, to look at our education differently and innovatively, and perhaps what our future looks like may be very different than we've seen in the past. But I do want to be clear, just again, to reiterate, the recommendation that we would like to bring to you today as it stands, without the additional information from the state with regard to funding and or regard to requirements for what the second semester looks like, we believe that there are students who are successful online, and for those who are, and for those who have health risk either of themselves or of those family members, where we are still in a pandemic and we do not want to compromise that. We believe that if they're successful, we want to continue with that option. K-12, we know that we'll have to be creative and do that a little differently, which will require us to know and do a survey of those families who wish to continue in that model under those circumstances, that we would need to get that information back from them and plan in advance for what that looks like, so they would also be informed of who their teacher would be and what that model would look like. But Chairman Cummings, to your point, they would not change schools. They would still be on record a student of that school, so there wouldn't be any confusion on that. And I also do want to clarify that, again, hybrid is not our model. That is not our preference. It evolved very recently from a few teachers that wanted to do it. However, if it's something that's working, as you all have identified, it's an innovative practice. If the teacher wants to, we'll provide support. It may be something that we look at moving into second semester.
How soon will we get these letters out? Because we're rapidly approaching Thanksgiving, and we'll be right back, and then it'll be Christmas. I'm just trying to figure out what's the timetable to getting them back and putting a deadline on them, because I know we're getting ready to go into choice at the same time.
Good afternoon. As you know, I'm a timeline person, so I have a timeline for all of that. We have already met. We have already well thought out that timeline and what it will look like. The second semester starts January 14th. What we're waiting on, we're ready to go. We already have the letter. We have it in both Spanish and English. What we're waiting on is the state. And although it might crunch our time to work out all the nuts and bolts to make it ready for January 14th, we're ready. Once we get the state, we'll pull the extra hours to make it work. Once we have the information, it'll look a lot like our beginning enrollment when we look at units and numbers and transition. So it is a monumental task, but we are already planned out. We have a timeline. Once we get the state directive and all of that, we will move forward, and we will have it ready for January 14th.
And we certainly don't want to send it out before the state, because then that could be incredibly confusing.
Right.
If we have to send out a second. So we've got to be very patient and wait on that.
I think what they're asking for, though, is a consensus from the board.
Absolutely.
Oh, I think you got that.
You got that.
So,
You got that.
I think we're ready. Okay, so everything.
You had that when you started talking.
You got that.
Yeah, you got that. Thank you. All right. The chair recognizes Board Attorney Jeremy Powers.
Board members, I am notifying you that advice is needed regarding the pending consolidated litigation styled the School Board of Marion County, Florida versus Gracie Vincent Holdings, LLC. Case number 2019 CA 1035, as consolidated with Gracie Vincent Holdings, LLC versus the School Board of Marion County. Case number 2020 CA 1406. Pursuant to Florida Statute 286.011, subsection 8, known as the Government in the Sunshine Act, I'm requesting a session with the board for the purposes of discussing settlement negotiations and strategy related to this matter. I will ask the board's clerk to cause reasonable public notice of the time and date of this session and the names of the persons attending to be published. It's suggested the session be held following the November 19th, 2020 administrative briefing and work session scheduled for 9:00 a.m. As required by this statute, only the following individuals will be present: Eric Cummings, Chair; Nancy Thrower, Vice Chair; Kelly King, School Board Member; Beth McCall, School Board Member; District 1 School Board Member, Superintendent Diane Gullett, Jeremy Powers, School Board Attorney, Cherish Benedict or Amy Pitch, Greenspoon Martyr LLP, outside counsel. I will ask a court reporter to record the session, also as required by statute. Her notes will be fully transcribed and filed with the clerk of the school board. Upon the conclusion of the litigation, this transcript will be made public record.
Thank you. For the record, I want to go ahead and add, it has unknown school board member. She's the elect right now. So just add a school board member elect, Allison Campbell, so that it will be on the record that she will be the one that will be attending. That's for District 1. She's not sworn, but she is the elect. I recommend the board hold an attorney-client session pursuant to section 286.011, parentheses 8, Florida statutes to discuss a pending litigation. If there are no objections, I will instruct our attorney to schedule the attorney-client session to be held following the November 19, 2020 administrative briefing and work session starting at approximately 11:30 a.m. All right. Ms. Presbitino, anything? Yes, sir. Thank you for helping with that. Attorney Powers, first meeting.
Thank you. Yes.
Long, right?
I've been in much longer.
Any comments?
Great.
Any comments, sir? Any comments?
No, sir.
Superintendent?
Just one, Chairman Cummings, members of the board. I want to borrow some words from Miss Sandy from Reddick Collier. We will watch us. We will be a top performing school district in the state.
Good.
Thanks, Miss Sandy.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. McCall?
Yes, I do have a couple of things. These are our legislative priorities, and I have plenty, but I want to just hand them out to you. Not sure, they do align pretty well with Florida School Board Association, which they're finishing those up. And Nancy, if you'll just take one and pass it. You saw my notes from the DOE, so our priorities, other than the PICO funds, are in alignment with the others and with the Superintendent's Association, I believe. So we don't know when that legislative delegation meeting, if they will even have a county meeting, will look like, but we'll have these prepared. And also, we don't know what Tallahassee's going to look like this year. My understanding is there will be, the Capitol at this point will not be open to the general public. You'll have to have appointments to go in. So you have relationships with our legislators, so as you're talking to them, we can hand these out and get started down that road. But they're going to be hearing the same theme throughout from many counties. Yes.
Just for the record, so that folk could know, because a lot of people are watching and listening.
Okay.
Can you go ahead and read what these are?
So yes.
And
so
how we kind of came about with these?
Absolutely.
Thank
So the Marion County, thank you. I should have done that. The Marion County School Board collectively, individually gives to our board secretary what we feel individually our legislative priorities should be. And then at a workshop, we discussed collectively what those should be. So we came up with 4 priorities, legislative priorities for 2021. And let me just read what they are. Postpone the 2020-2021 standardized testing or hold districts harmless if administered for school grades, teacher VAM scores, etc. That's number 1. Number 2, retain per pupil funding of the 2020-2021 rate. Number 3, restore PICO funding, which is public education capital outlay funding, with new revenue sources such as cell phone service tax in lieu of landline tax. And number 4, reconsider requiring external operators in repeat years. So those are the legislative priorities that we came up with for our district. So that's number 1. Number 2, I also believe in working smarter, not harder. And I think that when we created our drone policy, and I can't remember all of the discussions around our drone policy. A lot of it had to do with safety. But we have really, with this policy, we have created some things that I don't think were the intent. And so several have come to me and asked me to bring this up. So let me just share with you that, number one, most districts that we have checked with do not have a drone policy because FAA regulates that. So they go strictly by the FAA regulations. Ours is very restrictive, and so high school graduations, sporting events, looking at the top of facilities, looking at campuses, being able to do all of that, which drones are designed to do that, we've taken that all away. And so I would like for us to really, let me just, for example, the FFA policies are not nearly as strict as ours. 400-foot buffer zone of a structure is ours. Now the FAA, they require, they have specific altitudes, but they don't have horizontal distance requirements, but we do. They also allow for drones to be used before sunrise and after sunset. We don't. A couple of examples of some of the things, it would be much easier for our maintenance department to be able to look at the shape of our roofs if they could take a drone up and photograph them. And they can't do that. We're not allowing that. So I know that in one instance, a whole school campus got out. They wanted a whole picture. I don't know if it was for an anniversary or whatever. But we couldn't take a drone up and photograph that because our policy says we can't photograph people above. So they had to bring in a bucket truck to photograph. So I've been asked by some of the departments to really take a look at this and maybe consider a revision of our drone policy, or maybe just using the FFA regulations as our policy, as most districts are doing and don't have a drone policy. So this is for you to look at, for you to think about. There's so many opportunities for us to really be able to showcase what we're doing in Marion County if we have the ability to use a drone. And right now, our policy is so restrictive that we can't. So I would also ask our attorney to take a look at this and.
Already marking it up for.
Thank you. Thank you. I just think we're way too restrictive. And in today's world, we need to be able to use that technology to our advantage. So that's all I have, just to consider and to get this on a workshop so that we can really have these good conversations.
Thank you, Ms. McCall. And thank you for these points that we talked about for the legislative agenda. Sometimes the community may not know some of the initiatives that we are pushing and that we do push through to Tallahassee. And this is a good pamphlet, a booklet of what we are really pushing as a board, our priorities. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you for the drone policy.
Yeah, it's just wait.
We who were at Chief Graham's homegoing celebration last week know that they utilized drones to the utmost last Friday in covering the outside service of his homegoing celebration. So we need to be up to date with that stuff.
We have to use technology the way it's deemed to be used.
Ms. King?
Yes, I would like to begin by welcoming Mr. Powers. It's nice to have you aboard.
Thank you.
It was kind of fun to all of a sudden hear legal, since you mentioned it, so that was kind of good. And then also, I would just also like to request that we have an updated picture because you're missing a board member and we have one outgoing and a new one coming in. So if we could make that, and we could probably do that in a few weeks, but before we start passing them out, probably you're missing some, this isn't the current board, or what will be the board when we go.
Right.
So, and that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Thor?
Yes, thinking about what you were saying, Dr. Gullett, and quoting Principal Chris Sandy, who's just so direct and amazing. All of our principals are amazing. It really was wonderful to hear directly from them today. I believe it was the principal at Fessenden that referenced the importance of a strong, happy, stable staff. You know, and if the adults are on the same page and all cylinders are firing, then that's just going to filter right down to the kids and building that culture of excellence that we're striving for. So, and then my second thing, and I think that's my last thing, is that just want to emphasize that it's not about programs, you know, it's about people. And I'm so proud of our district. We've had so many challenges this past year, and we've just come together. We continue to come together, and the feedback that I'm getting from the public, and I don't get a lot of complaints. I get input now, like, oh, I was thinking this, or would this work? And I feel like that's a great sign that we're really on to something. You know, people are feeling comfortable and empowered to give their suggestions, and I certainly continue to welcome them. And Mr. Powers, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yes, glad to have you. Yeah. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Ms. Shore. Today was a rather lengthy presentation this morning, but it was a presentation that we need to see because sometimes people think that we are not seeing the data, we're not knowing the data, we're not knowing what's going on, and that we have kind of just relegated ourselves to staying at a certain status, which I was glad our superintendent stressed that we're not content with status quo, that we know where we are and that we're intent on moving forward. We know that as Marion County, we were at the bottom of the thing with our numbers and stuff, but we're strategically attacking that issue, and so I'm grateful to see that. And I was grateful to not hear just a show. I wanted to hear strategies. Oftentimes I'll tell folk, I don't like the dog and pony shows. I need the data. I need to know what it is and how we're going to move, and let's see the plan. And so that's what I heard today. So I'm grateful for that. And some people will say, "Oh, you guys are celebrating being at the bottom." No, we're not celebrating being at the bottom. We're celebrating the hard work that's being done in the midst of what we're going through. We're celebrating the efforts of our teachers and our staff, and we're not content. We're not complacent with being where we are. So I look forward to where we're getting ready to go. And I do, like Ms. Thorough just said, I think we're at a place where we're not getting complaints, we're getting input. In a organization like this, you should want to get input, especially from the community. Of course, we can't do everything we hear in that input, but we need to hear it. And good, bad, we need to be critiqued. If there's something wrong, we want to know that. I think that makes us better. And when you can't take critique, something's wrong. But I'm grateful for what I heard and where we're intending to go, because that brings about another word of being accountable. And we all have to be accountable to this district and to these students and to our staff. So, and accountability goes all the way from the top to the bottom. And that's what the county, that's what the community deserves, accountability. No longer do we need excuses. We just need to be accountable for what we're doing. And then I also want to remind all of our staff, we're in the midst of open enrollment. Some people may not have paid attention to it, but please, you have a time frame or window to make changes to your insurance or whatever you need to do. But open enrollment is going place on right now. I'm not sure when it ends, but I know we're in it right now. I think it started 2 weeks ago.
I think. Yeah. 13th.
13th, so next week. So if you have changes, you need to get on it and make the changes. where I come from, open enrollment was a big deal because insurance is vital in this day and age, and making sure that your stuff is up to date is vital. So please, sirs and ma'am, take a look at your coverages and whatever, and make sure that you are where you need to be and you have the things that you need to have. Yesterday we had a hearing, a tough decision that we had to deal with. And one of the things that came out of that was the fact that we need to look at our policy. We need to review that policy, considering that. And so I want to ask that we, as Ms. McCall just already brought up the drone policy, that we look at our zero tolerance drug policy as well, because that needs to be addressed. It needs to be updated. It needs to be as current as it can be, and make sure that we're in compliance where we are. And then the final thing that I have to discuss, and this is a discussion, and hopefully it won't be a long discussion. I talked with Mr. Christian yesterday. I talked with the superintendent yesterday. I talked with Sue Mosley yesterday about the Christmas parade. That is coming. We need to be as on the board a consensus or how we're going to approach this. If all signs are looking as if the city is going to say that they are going to allow there to be a Christmas parade, we need to know, our schools need to know, our students need to know, are we going to give them permission? There's some caveats to this because we haven't allowed field trips. We haven't allowed transportation on buses and stuff. That puts us in a situation where we would have to transport these kids on the buses and things like that for Christmas parade. So we need to kind of have that. We need to have that conversation about this.
Well, my thoughts are our job is to educate our students, and this time during the pandemic, I fear that if we congregate all of Marion County in one area, then we're risking exposing our students and our community toward COVID, which is, highly contagious, and it is real. Right when we start feeling a little bit comfortable, then all of a sudden I hear, this week that someone very close is not doing well with COVID. So it still is out there. That's my thoughts. I'm not comfortable creating a scenario for community spread.
We all know where that gathering spot is, and they gather hours ahead of time, and I mean it's crowded and packed in there, and I'm just really concerned about, because every band marches, every middle school band and high school band, and they're congregated right together. A parade's not a parade without a band, so I see that side of it as well. Did Ms. Mosley give you any indication at all at what they will be doing at the gathering spot to mitigate risk?
I did not get that. And I'm going to ask her to come probably to the next work session to kind of give us a layout of what this looks like, because we have to start thinking about it, to be honest with you.
I'm not sure the next work session's enough time for them, because
When's the next work
parade
session?
is this.
Oh, sorry.
The Christmas parade is December 12th.
Yes. And our next work session's the 19th.
For some reason, I didn't have that on my calendar.
It wasn't on my calendar, but we just talked about the 19th after the work session with.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have a work session on the 19th? Because I did not get a calendar invite either. I just checked.
And now I have conflict.
Yes, we do. You have one? Okay. Well, we haven't gotten one.
Yeah, November 19th, administrative briefing work session, 9 a.m.
I have it on my calendar.
I don't have one.
Okay.
I
I don't
didn't
have
have
it
it
on
either.
mine.
So can we at least start thinking about it and then get her back here on the 19th? The deadline to submit an application is the 30th of this month. She's extended the deadline out to the 30th.
Well, and I hate to wait till the 19th, because Band instructors, I mean, I guess they can go ahead and, I mean, you know, there's a lot to get ready for a parade.
Is there a way that we could have a work session
I don't mind.
in place of the one on the 19th, like sooner, so we can address what Attorney Powers needs to address, and then also have Ms. Mosley come and talk to us?
I'm sorry, excuse me, Chairman Cummings, members of the board. I was just thinking if you wanted to do it sooner, what about the board meeting? Could we do something at the board meeting?
That's fine.
Address it on
I'll
Tuesday?
ask her to come
Tuesday.
to the board meeting Tuesday. If you guys are in agreement.
Ms. Prestopino, could you check and make sure we have the calendar invites for all the work sessions?
Yeah.
Because I do want us to, you know, we are community partners with the city, county, and everything like that, but I do want us to, safety is of the utmost importance.
That's my biggest concern.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with where I stand, so.
So the 19th, I don't have it on, I didn't get it on.
We have a school board meeting every first and third Thursday, and, I mean, a work session in every second and fourth. I think on the Thanksgiving week, whatever, it was canceled. But other than that, you should always, on your calendar, know that's what we do unless there's the 5 weeks.
Yep, but I always count on those calendar invites.
Right, and
So with you guys' consensus, I'll ask Ms. Moses to come Tuesday night to the board meeting and talk about, because you'll have some questions that I can't ask for you.
well, and my thought is, Light Up Ocala was canceled.
It's canceled.
And so I don't know which entity or governing body made.
City.
Okay, I know the city did based on that, but, so for the Christmas parade, that's also within the city limits.
They have not voted on it, but when I was there Tuesday night, it sounds as if they're going to go forward with it. They have not voted on it. Let me say that.
'Cause that seems odd to me, that they took that stance on Light Up Ocala, and then, which people are definitely missing and wishing was going to happen, but then having a Christmas parade, which is essentially the same thing in my mind. I don't know what the difference really.
The difference that I was told is that Light Up Ocala is congregated into the
Yeah.
downtown square, whereas the parade is stretched out among miles.
But people still congregate.
I agree with you.
And our
Yeah,
number
those
one, my
curbs are-
priority is that our students get an education. And I would hate to expose our students to a crowd of people, they get sick, and then they miss school. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds harsh, and I think traditions and all that are very important, but right now, safety is.
Well, and the other thing, I go back to the study where I sit on the Florida School Music Association board, and that study of the aerosols that are produced with instruments. I mean, it's farther than 6 feet. And so what are our, that has to be another consideration, is what are our trumpets, what are our saxophone, do all of them, are all of them covered? Are our kids wearing, they can't wear masks to play, they would have to cut a hole. I mean, I think there has to be some real serious discussion on what would that even look like. Because the music protocols, and Mrs. Crowder, I think she would agree with me 100%, the music protocols that we've got in place right now are the recommendations based on the national music standards. So I think it's more than just kids marching. I think we've got to look at those instruments as well.
That's why I brought this to you guys.
Yeah, but it's concerning because there's not that much difference in my mind between Light Up Ocala and the Christmas parade. Everybody's congregating in the staging area, as Ms. King was saying, for hours ahead of time. And it's almost like now if we say that we don't, it's not that we don't want, but we don't feel that it's in the best interest to do this, and then it kind of makes us look like the bad guy, where I feel like the city should be weighing in on this.
I'm okay. I'm comfortable being the bad guy if it means protecting our community and our students. I'm perfectly okay with my decision.
So, like I said, I'll ask her to come.
Yeah, I think we need to have a conversation. I think she needs to hear our concerns, and
What
I
might
think
be
the
done.
city needs to hear our concerns too.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's the floats, but then the majority of the parade is our kids.
Right. And then I want to say, me personally, I know the board members normally, we're on a float, and I won't be this year because of safety concerns. I just don't, me personally, I don't think
There's
for
going to be
me.
a parade and then we don't participate.
Yeah.
That seems a little strange. This is just awkward.
Yeah.
I don't
So
like it.
we'll talk about it Tuesday night.
Yep.
All right.
And can we look back on the 19th now for the work session, because I didn't have a calendar invite. I remember some conversations about canceling a meeting, but maybe that was the board meeting. I know we're getting into the holidays.
It was the second and the third for the Florida School Board Association.
Okay, that was that. And I always have the calendar invites, and I go by those too to make my schedule, especially as it comes into the holidays and the breaks and trying to keep everything straight. And I've got a pretty significant conflict for Thursday, November 19th now. Sadly. And I don't want to miss it, so I don't know what the options may be, so that's what I'm asking. I know you needed us for what you need to talk about, and what else is on that day?
Nicole, can you advise what's on the agenda? It's not posted.
2021 stop loss and 2021 plan year updates, district-wide attendance zones, Evergreen and Oakcrest.
We need to postpone that.
Do we need to postpone it or move it?
We can.
Move it to another day? Do we want to move it?
Well, I want to make sure that Attorney Powers is able to-
Given that, then I think that I need to go through this again in order to reset.
Yeah.
Because we essentially concluded the last meeting we gave sort of our public notice on the record, but there's going to be posted public notice. But we'll just need to alter that to whatever date we.
Let me ask a question. Is the 18th good for anybody? Just move it up a day.
Well, as long as we're through by 11:30.
It's short, right, Nicole?
There's only 2 topics on there. I do not know how long Mr. Ayers needs. I know he has discussed attendance zones with you before, and it's on 2 specific schools.
And he's usually pretty quick.
Yeah,
Gets
he's
right to
quick.
the point. Yes, I could do the
But
18th in the
what we
morning.
have to discuss could take a while.
With this,
And I'm the one that's been involved with that, so I've got to be here.
the legal part of that?
Yeah. Can we do the 18th in the morning at 9 o'clock just for you, and postpone the other topics or add them to another work session? Is it anything that we absolutely?
Elena, do you need to say something?
Okay, so we can definitely postpone the 2021 stop loss and 2021 plan year updates. We can do that. But the district-wide attendance zones, we cannot. Because if we decide to move forward, we're already starting rulemaking and rule development. So that one we have to stick to.
Well, apart from postponing, can we move it up to the 18th?
It's already been advertised for the 19th.
Do we have enough time to re-advertise it?
You'd have 1 week
We have enough time to re-advertise it for the 18th?
Could we not notice for a change of date today, and you'd still be within the time frame of?
I can change it to the 18th.
notification?
You
Yes,
can.
we need to just make Mr. Ayers aware of that.
And can we change the, what you just asked for?
Yes, and I would like to just go ahead and put that on our meeting record again, just so, if I may, to go through it.
Yeah, and change it for the 18th.
Yes. And board members, as before, I am notifying you advice is needed regarding the pending consolidated litigation styled School Board of Marion County, Florida versus Gracie Vincent Holdings LLC. School Board of Marion County, case number 2020 CA 1406 and
Hold on. We can't do that right now. I'm gonna tell you why. We don't know if they'll be available for the 18th. That was Cherish them.
Right.
If their
That's
counsel.
our outside counsel?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you can go ahead and announce it, but it still may be postponed if they're not available for the 18th. Would they be available?
They'll need to be.
They'll be available.
Okay, all right, go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Pursuant to 286.0118 Florida statute, known as the Government in the Sunshine Act, I am requesting a session with the board for the purpose of discussing settlement negotiations and strategy related to this matter. I will ask the board's clerk to cause reasonable public notice as the time and date of this session and the names of the persons attending to be published. It's suggested that the session be held following the November 18th administrative briefing and work session, which has just been rescheduled for 9:00 a.m. As required by this statute, only the following individuals will be present: Eric Cummings, Chair; Nancy Thrower, Vice Chair; Kelly King, School Board Member; Beth McCall, School Board Member; Incoming District 1 School Board Member Allison Campbell; Superintendent Diane Gullett; Jeremy Powers, School Board Attorney; either Cherish Benedict or Amy Pitch of Greenspoon Martyr LLP outside counsel. As stated before, I will ask a court reporter to record the session, also as required by statute. Her notes will be fully transcribed and filed with the clerk of the school board. Upon the conclusion of the litigation, the transcript will be made public record.
Do we still want it at 11? Because it says 11:30. And you say you have to be gone at,
I have to be gone by 11:30.
okay. So if we're only going to have one person on the immediately, I'm just going to say immediately after the 9 a.m. work session. That makes,
So we're only going to have Mr. Ayers on the.
that's Mr. Ayers.
And then we'll have the.
Then we have this.
And then I'll just move the stop loss one to another day.
Correct. Okay. I recommend the board hold an attorney-client session pursuant to section 286.011, Florida statute to discuss the pending litigation. If there are no objections, I will instruct our attorney to schedule an attorney-client session to be held following the November 18th, 2020 administrative briefing and work session, starting immediately upon the conclusion of our 9 a.m. work session. Okay?
I will reach out to the outside counsel, and I will just have them plan on attending here somewhere starting around 9:30 so that we're ready to go whenever.
Thank you. Thank you. With that being said, meeting is adjourned at 12:54 p.m.